Chapter 1297. It was almost the same as the stone room from before. The stone room's walls were filled with carvings. The only difference was that these carvings were filled with the aura of the concept of fire. In front of him, there was also a fiery red light screen blocking his path. On the walls here is the concept of fire martial skill, the fire origin art. Only by successfully cultivating the fire origin art within half a year can you break through the light screen and step into the next stage. That voice sounded in Lu Ming's mind again. This time, it's the concept of fire martial skill, the fire origin art. Could it be that it's based on the concepts I've comprehended? I've comprehended 5 types of concepts, so do I have to cultivate 5 types of concept martial skills? Lu Ming guessed in his heart. His gaze looked at the light screen, then he walked over, circulated the earth origin art, and punched it. After the violent fist energy hit it, the light screen remained motionless, not even a ripple appeared. Then, Lu Ming changed to the Thunder God Strike, Hell Suppressing Heaven Skill, 9 Dragons Ascending Heaven Steps, etc., but they were all useless. The light screen didn't even have a ripple. Tricks were indeed useless. He still needed to comprehend the fire origin art to pass. Lu Ming didn't think too much and started to observe the carvings to comprehend the fire origin art. With the previous experience, Lu Ming quickly entered the state. The fire origin art was also more powerful than the Thunder God Strike, but the difficulty of cultivating it was also terrifying. Lu Ming carefully comprehended. Time flew by. 2 months and 12 days later, Lu Ming's body was bathed in flames, like a fire god. With a casual strike, the power of the concept of fire exploded to the extreme, displaying a terrifying power. He had successfully cultivated the fire origin art. Success, he succeeded again, ha ha ha. It's still within 3 months. This time, he only used 2 months and 12 days, saving 3 days compared to the earth origin art. There's hope this time. This Lu Ming's comprehension is too strong. There's really hope this time. In the hall, 2E, Gold E, and the others cheered excitedly. In the past, the fastest person to successfully cultivate a concept martial skill took 3.5 months. However, Lu Ming had only used 2.5 months for the first class, and he had even saved 3 days for the second class, surpassing all the others in the past. The shorter the time taken, the greater the potential. Only then would one have a chance to pass the last stage. Boom! Lu Ming pointed his finger and used the fire element spell. The fire mentality condensed on his fingertip and touched the fiery red light screen. The light screen shattered and disappeared. Lu Ming smiled faintly and continued to step forward. Sure enough, as Lu Ming expected, it didn't take long for them to arrive at another stone chamber. There were also carvings on the walls of the stone room. At the end of the stone room, there was also a light screen. This time, he needed to comprehend the concept of wind, the wind origin technique. Lu Ming didn't want to waste any time. He immediately entered the state and began to comprehend. This time, the time Lu Ming used was shortened by 2 days. He only used 2 months and 10 days to successfully comprehend the wind origin technique and pass this stage. Not long after, he arrived at the next stage. This time, it was the concept of water, the water origin technique. This time, the time was shortened by 2 days. He only used 2 months and 8 days to successfully cultivate and pass this stage. After that, he arrived at the 5th stage. He needed to cultivate the concept of thunder, the lightning origin technique. Compared to Lu Ming, the thunder elemental skill was simpler. This was because Lu Ming had cultivated the Thunder God Strike before. He had more experience in cultivating the thunder concept martial technique. Hence, it was easier for him to cultivate it. In the end, Lu Ming only used 2 months to successfully cultivate the lightning origin technique and pass this stage. Congratulations on passing the 2nd stage. When Lu Ming passed through the 5th light screen, a voice sounded in Lu Ming's mind. From start to finish, Lu Ming used less than a year to pass the 2nd stage and cultivate 5 powerful concept martial skills. I've really profited. Even if I don't get the primal chaos scripture this time, I've still profited. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. These 5 concept martial skills were priceless in the outside world. They couldn't be compared to a concept martial skill like the Thunder God Strike. Each of them was an elite concept martial skill. If Lu Ming could cultivate these 5 concept martial skills to the highest level, his battle strength would skyrocket. Let's continue. I must get the primal chaos scripture. Lu Ming clenched his fists tightly. It was just a trial. If he could obtain 5 such wondrous concept martial skills, then the primal chaos scripture would definitely be amazing. Lu Ming's heart burned with passion. He continued to move forward. Soon, the light in front of him lit up. Lu Ming arrived at a battle stage. The battle stage was huge, more than 100 miles wide. Is the battle stage a test of battle strength? Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. Buzz. 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 When Lu Ming stepped onto the battle stage, 5 figures suddenly appeared in front of Lu Ming. These 5 figures were all tall and burly men, but their skin color was different. There was yellow, green, blue, and fiery red. They were very similar to 2E that Lu Ming had seen before. They seemed to be puppets. In the last stage, use the earth element technique, thunder element technique, fire element technique, water element technique, and wind element technique to defeat the 5 puppets. Other martial skills will be ineffective. The time limit is 2 years. A voice sounded in Lu Ming's mind. In the last stage, he only needed to defeat the 5 puppets within 2 years. Lu Ming had just thought of this. Whoosh! One of the 5 figures pounced on Lu Ming. This figure was yellow in color and used the earth element technique. It punched at Lu Ming. The earth element technique filled the air and a strong pressure acted on Lu Ming. This puppet's cultivation wasn't any weaker than Lu Ming's. With the earth element technique, it was terrifyingly powerful. Boom! Lu Ming's true essence exploded and the earth element technique filled the air. He used the earth element technique and punched at the puppet. When the 2 fists collided, Lu Ming felt an overwhelming force rushing toward him. Lu Ming's body trembled and he couldn't help but retreat. Its mastery of the earth element technique is far above mine. Lu Ming's eyes sharpened. Bang! The yellow puppet stepped onto the battle stage and charged at Lu Ming. Its fist was as heavy as a mountain and as heavy as the earth. I can't defeat it, Lu Ming thought. In a situation where they had the same strength, Lu Ming's earth element technique wasn't as good as his opponent's. He wasn't its opponent at all. As for other martial skills, they would be ineffective. Roar! 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 Dragon roars sounded from Lu Ming's body as the 9 dragon energies exploded. Lu Ming's strength increased tremendously as the dragon energies exploded. He used the earth element technique and punched out. But in the next moment, Lu Ming's expression changed. Chapter 1298. Pung. The 2 fists collided, but Lu Ming was still pushed back. Bloodline. Lu Ming's heart stirred and the 3rd bloodline appeared. A gush of energy surged into Lu Ming's body, increasing his strength once again. However, as Lu Ming's strength increased, the power of the khaki-colored puppet would also increase. Then, Lu Ming used the suppressing Hell Heaven skill to increase its power. Correspondingly, the puppet's strength also increased rapidly. It was useless. No matter how Lu Ming increased his strength, the puppet's strength would increase as well. It's useless. In the end, we have to fight using Intent Realm martial skills. Lu Ming sighed and withdrew his bloodline and dragon power. As expected, the puppet's strength also weakened. Its basic strength was always on the same level as Lu Ming's. Then let's fight using Intent Realm martial skills. Lu Ming only used his True Yuan and Earth Element technique to fight against the puppet. Unfortunately, the puppet's Intent Realm martial skill was above Lu Ming's. Lu Ming tried his best to resist, but he was still no match. In less than 10 moves, he was knocked off the stage. The puppet stopped attacking as soon as Lu Ming left the stage. Looks like this stage is going to be very difficult. Right now, only one khaki-colored puppet has taken action. There are still 4 others who haven't taken action yet. I wonder if the other 5 puppets will join forces. If they do, the difficulty will be even more terrifying. No wonder it took 2 years. Lu Ming thought quickly. It seems that I have to quickly improve my intent realm martial skills to pass this stage. Then, let's continue fighting. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. He stepped forward and returned to the stage. The puppet's intent realm martial skill was exactly the same as his. Continuous fighting would be of great help to Lu Ming in comprehending intent realm martial skills. Shwa. This time, it was no longer the puppet that attacked, but a fiery red puppet. It used the fire element technique, which was full of explosive power. Lu Ming also used his fire elemental technique to fight. The other party's mastery of fire elemental arts was clearly above Lu Ming's. Even if Lu Ming did his best, it would still be difficult for him to resist. How ingenious. I didn't know that the fire elemental technique could be used like this. While fighting, Lu Ming tried to sense the fire elemental technique that his opponent was using. At the same time, he also tried to verify it with his own cultivation and improve his understanding of the fire elemental technique. After more than 10 moves, Lu Ming was knocked off the fighting ring. However, Lu Ming was not discouraged. He continued to climb onto the platform. This time, it was a green puppet that attacked. It used the wind origin technique. Just like that, once Lu Ming was knocked off the battle stage, he would immediately get back on the battle stage and fight with his opponents. While fighting, he was also comprehending the poetic conception of martial arts. His progress was extremely fast. Every time, only when Lu Ming's true essence was exhausted would he stop and swallow the ores to replenish his true essence. Time flew by in a blink of an eye. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, in the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. In this half a year, apart from recovering his true essence, Lu Ming was also fighting with the 5 puppets. His comprehension of the 5 poetic conception of martial arts had increased by leaps and bounds. Lu Ming had achieved a major breakthrough in all 5 poetic conception of martial arts. He had stepped into the 3rd level, and his power had increased greatly. Boom! Lu Ming used the earth origin technique to fight with the khaki puppet. Lu Ming's fist energy was powerful and heavy. The earth origin technique was integrated into it. Every punch was like the earth itself was suppressing the opponent. Its power was extremely shocking. When the 2 fists collided, the khaki puppet's body flew far away and fell on the edge of the fighting ring. Get down! Lu Ming rushed towards the khaki puppet. Shwa! However, at this moment, a green figure flashed. The green puppet pounced on Lu Ming like lightning. It waved its hand and the wind origin technique cut open the space and slashed towards Lu Ming. At the same time, a blazing aura filled the air. The fiery red figure also pounced on Lu Ming. Then, it was the blue puppet and the purple puppet. The khaki puppet also stood up. The 5 puppets pounced on Lu Ming together. Sure enough, as Lu Ming had guessed, the 5 puppets had joined forces. The 5 puppets' power was amazing. Lu Ming was constantly pushed back. The key was that when Lu Ming used one of the poetic conception of martial arts, he would be restrained by the corresponding puppet. It would be difficult for him to use his full power. Lu Ming could only constantly change his poetic conception of martial arts. He used the 5 poetic conception of martial arts in turn to block the opponent's attacks. However, it took time to change the 5 poetic conception of martial arts. Even if it was only for a moment, it was still a flaw. Lu Ming was pushed back again and again. After a few moves, he was knocked off the fighting ring. The 5 puppets joining forces is too strong. It's flawless. I'm not their match at all when I use only one poetic conception of martial arts. If I can perfectly change the 5 poetic conception of martial arts, there might be hope. Lu Ming thought for a while and then stepped onto the fighting ring. As soon as he stepped onto the fighting ring, the 5 puppets pounced on Lu Ming. Lu Ming could only try his best to change the 5 poetic conception of martial arts to fight the 5 puppets. In the beginning, Lu Ming was completely defeated. Because there was always a gap between the 5 poetic conception of martial arts. If it wasn't perfect, the opponent would seize the gap and defeat him. However, as time passed, Lu Ming became more and more proficient in switching between the 5 types of martial techniques. A few months later, Lu Ming could easily achieve a perfect switch. He could cast any martial technique with ease. He could even cast different martial techniques with his left and right hands. At this point, Lu Ming finally managed to block the attacks of the 5 puppets. Merge. But at this time, the yellow puppets said indifferently. Then, the 5 puppets' figures changed, and the 5 poetic conception of martial arts blasted out. They merged together, forming a chaotic color that blasted towards Lu Ming. The 5 poetic conception of martial arts actually merged together, and the power increased crazily. In just one move, Lu Ming was sent flying out of the fighting ring. No way, it can be played like this. Lu Ming shouted in his heart. The difficulty of this stage was too high. The 5 puppets' methods were endless, and they were getting more and more powerful. Now, the 5 poetic conception of martial arts could actually be merged together? Merge? Right, merge. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. Was this the prerequisite to cultivate the chaotic conception? Only by merging the 5 poetic conception of martial arts could one be qualified to cultivate the chaotic conception? Lu Ming couldn't help but guess. These stages were not only a test, but also a training. Only those who could break through under such training could walk to the end and successfully cultivate the chaotic conception. The chaotic conception was the emperor of all conceptions in the world. Its power was absolutely terrifying, but it wasn't hard to imagine that the difficulty of cultivating it was also absolutely terrifying. The conditions to cultivate it were also extremely harsh. It wasn't something that anyone could cultivate successfully. Only when certain conditions were met could one succeed. And the tests along the way were very likely to prepare for cultivating the chaotic conception. If he couldn't pass all the tests along the way, then he wouldn't be qualified to cultivate the chaos scripture, and it would be impossible to cultivate the chaotic conception. Thinking of this, Lu Ming's eyes were filled with fighting spirit again. Come, I don't believe that I can't merge the 5 poetic conception of martial arts. Chapter 1299. In the hall, 2E, Gold E, and the others stared at the ball and observed it carefully. It's the last stage. I don't know if he can succeed. Goldie sighed. His eyes were full of hope, but he was also worried. The last stage is the most important one. In history, there have been people who have reached this stage, but in the end, they all failed. If they cannot merge the 5 martial skills into one, it is impossible to successfully cultivate the chaotic will. 2E said. This kid has the best result in the beginning. I hope he can succeed. A fiery red figure spoke. I hope so. The other sighed. On the fighting ring, Lu Ming was blasted off as soon as he got on the stage. Again. Lu Ming wasn't discouraged. He rushed onto the fighting ring again. The 5 puppets attacked at the same time. The 5 martial skills merged and blasted towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming's soul consciousness was constantly scanning how the 5 puppets merged the 5 martial skills. He was also analyzing it in his mind. The power of the 5 martial skills was too strong. After 2 moves, Lu Ming was blasted off the fighting ring and spat out a mouthful of blood. Again. Again. Lu Ming wasn't discouraged. He ignored his injuries and continued to fight. Time passed day by day. In the beginning, Lu Ming could only block 1 or 2 moves. Later on, Lu Ming blocked more and more moves, and the time he could hold on became longer and longer. After another half a year, Lu Ming could hold on for more than 10 moves. At this time, there were still 9 months before the end of the 2-year period, but Lu Ming still hadn't comprehended the 5 martial skills. Each of the 5 martial skills had its own unique system. Each of them was a deep excavation of their own martial skills. They were all unique. It was too difficult to merge them into one. It seems that when I fused the 5 concepts together before, it was only a superficial fusion. It wasn't a complete fusion. If it was a complete fusion, then the 5 concepts wouldn't have been separated, but would have become a new concept. After this period of time, Lu Ming also understood that the so-called fusion of his 5 concepts was only a superficial fusion. He was still thousands of miles away from a complete fusion. The fusion of 5 types of martial skills still needs to start from the fusion of the concepts. Lu Ming was analyzing all kinds of possibilities in his mind. Then, he stepped onto the battle platform to verify his thoughts. Boom! 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 On the fighting ring, Lu Ming's 5-colored conception revolved around him. In a flash, he struck out 5 different kinds of martial skills. Fire, thunder, wild wind. They roared on the fighting ring and bombarded the 5 puppets. However, the attack with shocking might instantly crumbled under the fusion of the 5 martial techniques of the 5 martial techniques. It was no match for them at all. It was like steel hitting tofu. Continue. Lu Ming continued to strike out 5 martial techniques of the 5 concepts, trying to fuse them. Yes, this is the feeling. As long as I continue on this path, I will eventually succeed. Although he still failed, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He finally felt that he had found the right direction. As long as he found the right direction, he would eventually succeed. The battle continued. Half a month later, Lu Ming struck out continuously. This time, only 4 martial techniques of the 4 concepts erupted. It wasn't that one was missing, but that 2 of them had been successfully fused by Lu Ming. I finally succeeded in the first step. Lu Ming was ecstatic. After such a long time, he had finally taken the first step. Now that he had fused 2 concepts, it was only a matter of time before he fused 3, 4, or even 5. Continue, continue. Lu Ming was excited and continued to fight. In the hall, 2E, Gold E, and the others were so excited that they almost jumped up. Success, he succeeded. He has fused 2 concepts. He is not far from success. The first in history, the first in history. No one has ever reached this step before. There is hope. The inheritance of the sovereign, there is finally a successor? Gold E and the others laughed. They were extremely happy and excited. The first 2 concepts were relatively easy to fuse, but the later 3, 4, and 5 concepts would become more and more difficult. However, Lu Ming had found the right direction. He had a clear goal, and he was improving every moment, getting closer to his goal. Time passed, day by day, month by month. The 2 years were getting closer and closer. And Lu Ming had also made a major breakthrough. He had successfully fused 3 concepts, 4 concepts, and 1 month before the 2 years, Lu Ming had finally fused 5 martial techniques of the 5 concepts into 1 concept martial technique. Boom! With a strike, chaotic chi filled the air. The terrifying power dispersed the attacks of the 5 puppets, and the powerful chi continued to bombard. Pung! 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 The 5 puppets were sent flying by Lu Ming, and fell outside the fighting ring. Although the 5 puppets had also fused 5 martial techniques of the 5 concepts, they were separated by 5 people. However, Lu Ming was one person, and the fusion was purer and more powerful. Naturally, the battle strength he could exert was stronger. He succeeded. He succeeded. Let's go and see. 2E, Gold E, and the others shouted excitedly. Then, they moved and disappeared from the hall. In the next moment, on the fighting ring where Lu Ming was, the space cracked open, and 2E and the others stepped out. Senior 2E. Seeing 2E, Lu Ming was slightly stunned. He then cupped his fist and bowed, looking at Gold E and the others. Ha ha ha, Lu Ming, no need to be so polite. Congratulations on passing all the tests. You are qualified to cultivate the Chaos Scripture. Let me introduce you. This is Gold E, Lei E. 2E laughed and was extremely excited. He introduced Gold E and the others to Lu Ming. Lu Ming greets seniors. Although he knew that Gold E and the others were puppets, Lu Ming still bowed respectfully. No need to be so polite. When you succeed in cultivating the Chaos Scripture, you will be the successor of the Overlord, and also our master. Goldie laughed loudly. He couldn't even close his mouth. The Overlord? Lu Ming was surprised. Lu Ming, let me make it clear to you. This is the Chaos Hall of the Hunyuan sect. The Hall Master is the Chaos Overlord. The Chaos Overlord is one of the strongest in the Hunyuan sect. His battle strength is unparalleled, and he is the top expert in the world. As long as you succeed in cultivating the Chaos Scripture, you will be the successor of the Chaos Overlord, and naturally our master. 2E explained. The Chaos Hall belongs to the Hunyuan sect. Senior, is there a Spacetime Spirit Hall in the Hunyuan sect? Lu Ming asked curiously. You know about the Spacetime Spirit Hall? Yes, there are 9 halls in the Hunyuan sect. The Spacetime Spirit Hall is one of the 9 halls in the Hunyuan sect. The Hall Master of the Spacetime Spirit Hall is one of the top 10 battle beasts, the Spacetime Spirit Mouse. He is also the top expert in the world, but he is still slightly inferior to the Chaos Overlord. 2E explained. When he mentioned the Chaos Overlord, his face was full of pride. The Chaos Overlord is so powerful. He is stronger than the top 10 battle beasts. Chapter 1300. Lu Ming, the Primal Chaos Scripture is inside. Go in. As long as you successfully cultivate the Primal Chaos Scripture, you can leave this place. However, since you have successfully merged 5 different martial skills, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to cultivate the Primal Chaos Scripture. 2E pointed to a stone door behind the fighting platform. Thank you, seniors. Lu Ming cupped his fists and walked towards the stone door. The stone door was closed, but after Lu Ming walked in, the stone door opened automatically. Behind the stone door, it was misty and he could not see clearly. Without any hesitation, Lu Ming stepped in. As soon as Lu Ming entered the stone door, it closed automatically. Behind the stone door was a huge stone chamber. Above the stone chamber, there was a figure sitting cross-legged in the air. That figure was not very burly, nor was it very tall. However, it gave off the feeling that it was as tall as the sky. It was capable of supporting both heaven and earth. It was the most burly figure in the world. That aura was mysterious and unfathomable compared to any expert Lu Ming had encountered before. Lu Ming felt as if he was facing the entire universe when facing this figure. Back then, when Lu Ming faced the Sacred Heart left behind by the Heavenly Profound Saint, he was already shocked by the other party's vast aura. However, he now felt that the Heavenly Profound Saint was just an ant or a speck of dust in front of this figure. At this moment, Lu Ming felt as if he had stopped breathing. The figure was completely shrouded in the light of primal chaos. His appearance could not be seen clearly, only a blurry figure. Could this be the Primal Chaos Emperor? Lu Ming thought to himself. Too powerful. The Primal Chaos Emperor's realm had reached a level that Lu Ming could not imagine. Yet, such an expert had already fallen. Lu Ming had heard 2E mention that the Primal Chaos Emperor had fallen. That was why he was looking for an inheritor. How could such a powerful existence fall? What kind of enemy did he face? Lu Ming could not imagine. Could the figure in front of him be a mark of the Primal Chaos Emperor? Lu Ming guessed. I am the Primal Chaos Scripture. Suddenly, the figure spoke. Its voice was calm and soothing to the ears. The Primal Chaos Scripture. This figure is the Primal Chaos Scripture. Lu Ming was stunned. He had not expected the Primal Chaos Scripture to take the form of a human and exude a vast aura. I was left behind by the Primal Chaos Emperor. I have been waiting for an inheritor here for so many years. My mission is complete. The Primal Chaos Scripture, said Primal Chaos Scripture. It turned into a ray of light and flew into Lu's glabella. Of Primal Chaos Scripture. In the next moment, Lu Primal Chaos Scripture, Primal Chaos Scripture. Chaos Scripture, the Primal Chaos Chaotic Domain Realm. And even the corresponding martial intent and the domain martial intent. Primal as it is Chaos Scripture. It's too mysterious. It's too mysterious. The more Lu Ming read, the more excited he became. No, I can't read the rest now. Even if I read it, I won't be able to understand it. Now, I have to convert my 5 intents into the Primal Chaos intent. Lu Ming collected his thoughts and began to read the beginning of the Primal Chaos Scripture. It was the most basic part of cultivating the Primal Chaos intent. The Primal Chaos intent was to convert 5 or more intents of different attributes into the Primal Chaos intent. The Primal Chaos intent was incomparably mysterious. It was the beginning of all intents in the world. After successfully cultivating the Primal Chaos intent, the Primal Chaos intent could be converted into other intents at will. For example, after successfully cultivating the Primal Chaos intent, the Primal Chaos intent could be converted into the Slaughter intent, Destruction intent, Blood intent, Lightning intent, and so on. Only the strongest intents could not be converted into the Primal Chaos intent. For example, the Time intent, Space intent, and so on. Lu Ming read the Primal Chaos Scripture carefully. Then, he sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. Lu Ming had already merged the 5 intents into one. Therefore, it was not difficult for him to cultivate the Primal Chaos Scripture now. It could be said that the previous training tests had paved the way for him to cultivate the Primal Chaos intent. 3 days later, the 5 colored intents surrounded Lu Ming's body and began to boil. 7 days later, the colors of the 5 colored intents had become a little blurry. Half a month later, the 5 intents had completely intertwined together. The original colors could not be seen. 2 months later, Lu Ming's surroundings were misty and chaotic. The original 5 intents had disappeared and were replaced by an even more mysterious and supreme intent that bloomed from Lu Ming's body. The Primal Chaos intent, the Emperor of Intents, Lu Ming had finally succeeded in cultivating it. Moreover, it was at the peak of the 4th level. Shwa! Lu Ming stretched out a finger with the Primal Chaos intent entwined on it. He gently tapped the space, and waves of ripples appeared in the space like water waves. One had to know that this was the heaven realm, and the space was very stable. It was far more stable than the continent of God. Previously, Lu Ming could not tear the space apart even if he used all his strength. But now, with just a light tap, the space rippled. The power is too shocking. With my current cultivation base and the Primal Chaos intent, I should be able to fight against an emperor, right? I might even be able to suppress an emperor. Lu Ming guessed. His eyes revealed a shocking fluctuation. It was confidence, an extremely strong confidence. Lu Ming's current cultivation base was only at the peak of the 9th level of the Spirit God realm. Lu Ming was confident that he could fight against and even suppress an emperor. If others knew about this, they would probably laugh at Lu Ming for being a madman. But now, Lu Ming had such a feeling. In the past, he needed the help of the Thunder Cauldron, Dandan, Bubbles, and the others to contend against an emperor. But now, Lu Ming was confident that he could suppress an emperor without the help of the Thunder Cauldron, Dandan, Bubbles, and the others. I wonder how Shaoqing is doing. I've been here for more than 3 years. It might only be a while in the outside world. Shaoqing is in my mountain and river diagram. I wonder if time is synchronized with me? Lu Ming thought. Then, his glabella lit up, and the mountain and river diagram emerged. Lu Ming's figure moved and appeared in the mountain and river diagram. Lu Ming. As soon as Lu Ming entered the mountain and river diagram, Xian Yanqing appeared in front of Lu Ming, staring at Lu Ming with resentment. Lu Ming, what's going on? Why haven't you come to see me for more than 3 years? Xian Yanqing stared at Lu Ming with hatred, but deep in his eyes, there was a strong sense of longing. It's been more than 3 years. Is the time in the mountain and river diagram synchronized with me? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Shao Qing, it's like this. Immediately, Lu Ming explained the matter in detail. So it's like this. After hearing it, Xian Yanqing was amazed. Shao Qing, your cultivation has improved a lot. Lu Ming scanned with his spiritual sense and found that Xian Yanqing's cultivation had already reached the peak of the 9th level of the spirit god realm. Like Lu Ming, he was only 1 step away from the perfected spirit god realm. Of course. I was bored alone, so I've been cultivating hard. In more than 3 years, my progress is naturally fast. Xian Yanqing said. I'm sorry, Shao Qing. In the next moment, Lu Ming hugged Xian Yanqing tightly in his arms and pressed his lips against Xian Yanqing's red lips. When their lips met, Xian Yanqing's body trembled slightly, as if he had lost all his strength and allowed Lu Ming to do whatever he wanted. Chapter 1301. Speaking of which, the two of them hadn't seen each other for more than 3 years, so they naturally missed each other. They snuggled up to each other and chatted. Half a day later, a voice entered Lu Ming's ears. Lu Ming, you will be teleported back to your original place in half a month. It was Tu Yi's voice. Half a month later? Lu Ming was stunned. Originally, he wanted to cultivate here for a while longer because cultivating here for a few years might only be a short while in the outside world. Wouldn't it be a pity to miss such a good place? But now, Tu Yi said that there was only half a month left. Lu Ming told Xian Yanqing about this matter and then left the mountain river diagram. He didn't see Tu Yi in the huge stone chamber. Tu Yi must have sensed something and sent him a voice transmission. Senior Tu Yi, why is there only half a month left? Lu Ming asked. He knew that Tu Yi should be able to hear him. The time here accelerates extremely fast, but it requires a huge amount of energy to maintain the time acceleration. Every time, only those who are qualified to participate in the assessment come here, the time acceleration will be activated. Now that you have successfully cultivated the chaotic will, the time acceleration will naturally stop. Otherwise, there won't be so much energy to consume. Tu Yi's voice came. Lu Ming nodded. Although he felt that it was a pity, it was normal. Time acceleration was too powerful. It naturally couldn't be maintained all the time as it would consume a terrifying amount of energy. If it could be maintained easily, it would be too terrifying. How long would it take to cultivate for thousands of years in the outside world? If a group of people were allowed to cultivate here, wouldn't it be incredible? That was impossible. Even with the Chaos Hall's foundation, it couldn't be maintained for long. Senior, I will leave in half a month. Lu Ming said. Okay. Tu Yi's voice came. Next, improve your cultivation. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. Now, his will had transformed into the chaotic will, which was at the perfected 4th level. Lu Ming's cultivation could also be improved to the perfected spirit god. Half a month was enough for Lu Ming to devour and refine origin stones and improve his cultivation. With a wave of his hand, a huge pile of ores appeared, along with the bloodline of the 9 dragons. With a single gulp, he devoured 10 million ores and began refining them. A huge amount of origin stones were constantly being refined and turned into true essence, helping Lu Ming to break through to the next realm. After refining the 10 million, he swallowed another 10 million. 10 million after 10 million. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Lu Ming had devoured and refined a total of 100 million origin stones. Such a shocking amount of origin stones transformed into a shocking amount of true essence and began to attack. Boom! Inside Lu Ming's body, his aura flourished. Inside his dantian, the spirit deity blossomed with boundless multicolored light. It became solid and heavy, just like a real person. Lu Ming's cultivation base also broke through from the peak of the 9th level of the spirit god realm to the consummate spirit god realm. Perfected spirit god. Lu Ming had finally reached the perfected spirit god realm. The next step was to break through to the emperor realm. Everything was in preparation for the ruler. In the process of breaking through to become a ruler, one would comprehend the embryonic form of a domain and become a sovereign. The consummate spirit god realm was already at the peak of the spirit god realm. Lu Ming felt the extremely rich true essence in his body, and a confident smile hung on his face. Now, how strong was his battle prowess? Lu Ming couldn't figure it out himself, so he was very curious. It's time to go out. Lu Ming smiled and walked toward the stone room's door. The stone door opened automatically, and Lu Ming walked out. Outside was still the same battle stage. 2E, Gold E, and the others were still on the stage. Seeing Lu Ming come out, 2E, Gold E, and the others had smiles on their faces. Then, they suddenly bowed to Lu Ming and shouted in unison, "Subordinate greets young master." Lu Ming was stunned. He hurriedly helped 2E and the others up and said, "Seniors, what are you doing? Please get up quickly. Young master, you've obtained the Chaos Emperor's inheritance and successfully cultivated the Chaos concept. That means you're our young master." 2E spoke and insisted on kneeling to Lu Ming. What kind of cultivation did 2E and the others have? Lu Ming couldn't stop them at all, so he could only let them kneel. After bowing, 2E and the others got up. "Seniors, are you the only ones left in the Chaos Palace?" Lu Ming asked curiously. "Sigh, in the battle back then, all the powerhouses of the Chaos Palace died in battle. Only us puppets are left, but there aren't many left." 2E sighed. "Then, can you all go out with me?" Lu Ming asked with some anticipation in his eyes. 2E and the others had unfathomable cultivation. If they could go out with him, it would be easy to kill DE and even wipe out the divine ruins. Unfortunately, the result disappointed Lu Ming. "No." 2E, Gold E, and the others shook their heads. "Young master, the Chaos Emperor left a message. The inheritor of the Chaos Emperor must reach the Saint Realm before we can leave. Before that, we can't leave and can't help you much." 2E explained. Lu Ming was disappointed. It seemed that the Chaos Emperor was afraid that his inheritor would be too reliant on 2E and the others and lose the will to improve, so he set such a rule. Seeing Lu Ming's disappointed expression, 2E pondered for a while and said, "Young master, it's not that there's no reward at all. Because you performed exceptionally well in the test, there will be a reward." After saying that, 2E waved his hand and a figure appeared beside him. It was a figure with the same yellow color as 2E. At first glance, it was obvious that it was a puppet. "Young master, this puppet is called Tu Qian. He has the strength of a peak LV2 martial royal realm. He can go out with you temporarily and help you." 2E said. Peak LV2 martial royal realm. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. That was fine. A peak LV2 martial royal realm expert was the most powerful expert in the divine region, comparable to DE. "Greetings, young master." Tu Qian bowed to Lu Ming. "Good. Tu Qian, enter the abode treasure for the time being." Lu Ming summoned the mountain and river diagram and put Tu Qian into the mountain and river diagram. Whoosh! At that moment, a token flew over and floated above Lu Ming's head. It was the primordial chaos token. "Young master, keep this primordial chaos token well. In the future, you may be able to compete for the position of the primordial sex successor." 2E said. "The primordial sex successor?" Lu Ming was surprised. "Yes. Anyone who gets the Primordial Chaos token will have a great opportunity in the future to compete for the position of the Primordial Sect successor and have a chance to inherit the Primordial Sect. At that time, not only the Chaos Palace but also the other 8 palaces will have to obey the orders of the Primordial Sect successor. 2E explained. Lu Ming was shocked. He did not expect the Primordial Chaos token to have such a use. Lu Ming quickly put away the Primordial Chaos token. Young Master, let's send you back. Earth 1 then joined forces with Gold 1 and the rest to open up a void passageway. Lu Ming felt his body tighten. His vision turned black and he fell into darkness. Chapter 1302. Lu Ming, that guy, is really disloyal. He can't beat us, so he abandoned us and ran away. As soon as Lu Ming appeared, he heard Dandan yelling and shouting. There were also rumbling sounds. But in the next moment, all the sounds disappeared. Lu Ming stood in the void. Dandan, Bubbles, Haiyu, Flood Dragon Supreme, and the others all looked at Lu Ming. At this moment, they were still in the ancient city where they fought with Haiyu and the others. Nestle, Lu Ming, so you didn't leave. I thought you left the 2 of us and took the opportunity to escape. Dandan shouted and ran towards Lu Ming. Chirp chirp, Bubbles shouted as its body glowed. In a flash, it appeared on Lu Ming's shoulder. Whoosh! 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 Haiyu, Flood Dragon Supreme, and the others surrounded Lu Ming. Lu Ming, I said you can't run away. Hand over the pure spiritual body cultivation method. Haiyu shouted coldly. He held an emperor-level battle axe in his hand and his aura was terrifying. The cultivation method of pure spirit body belongs to the Sea Demon clan. Flood Dragon Supreme said. The dragon vein sword floated above his head. Sword chi flowed out and cut cracks in the void. Dandan, how long have I been gone? Lu Ming ignored Haiyu, Flood Dragon Supreme, and the others and asked Dandan. Not long, only a dozen breaths. But do you know how dangerous it was? Fortunately, I have many tricks up my sleeve and managed to escape. Otherwise, would have died long ago. Dandan shouted. Only a dozen breaths. Lu Ming exclaimed in his heart. Although he knew that time was accelerated in the Primal Chaos Palace and that a few years in the Primal Chaos Palace was only a short while in the outside world, he still found it unbelievable after experiencing it for himself. In just a dozen breaths, his strength had undergone an earth-shattering change. Humph, how dare you ignore us? You're courting death. Seeing that Lu Ming was ignoring them, Haiyu's eyes turned cold. He raised his battle axe and chopped down at Lu Ming. The power of this axe had completely reached the level of a ruler, and it was terrifyingly powerful. Dandan, Bubbles, follow me. Lu Ming exhorted. Then, he released the aura of the concept of wind. The concept of primal chaos could transform into other concepts at will. Wind element technique. Lu Ming's figure shuddered slightly. He dodged Haiyu's axe with a flicker and headed for the other 9 Heaven Supremes behind Haiyu. The wind origin technique was a martial technique that focused on movement. When executed, one's figure would become ethereal and untraceable. After dodging Haiyu's attack, Lu Ming appeared in front of the other supreme martial artists in the sea suppressing marshal's residence. Kill! Lu Ming shouted, and the true Yuan in his body violently surged out. He used the suppressing hell heavenly skill and punched out. Attack, attack together. One of the supreme martial artists roared. He was shocked by the power of Lu Ming's punch. He immediately used the bloodline fusion technique to attack Lu Ming. Bang! Lu Ming punched out, and the bloodline fusion technique of the supreme martial artist was directly dispersed. His original body appeared with a horrified expression on his face. Then, his body split into pieces and exploded in the air. Oh my God! He killed a supreme martial artist with a punch. In the distance, the other spectators were almost scared to death. They shouted incoherently. It was too shocking, too terrifying. What kind of combat strength was needed to kill a supreme martial artist with a punch? Was Lu Ming an emperor? Oh no, retreat. When the other supreme martial artists saw this, they were scared out of their wits. They screamed crazily and retreated frantically. You can't leave. Lu Ming's eyes were like lightning, emitting a cold killing intent. Using the wind element technique, Lu Ming's figure moved like lightning, and his speed was extremely fast. In an instant, he appeared in front of another supreme martial artist and punched out. Ah! A shrill scream was heard. Although the supreme martial artist tried his best to block the attack, it was still useless. Under Lu Ming's punch, all his defenses were as fragile as tofu. He was easily defeated by Lu Ming and killed in the air. The second one. Lu Ming murmured, and then attacked the third one. Lu Ming did not use the chaotic will, but his current cultivation had broken through to the perfect spirit god realm, and his combat strength had improved greatly. Killing these ordinary supremes was as easy as killing chickens and dogs. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming's figure flickered continuously as he threw out punches. Each punch would kill a supreme martial artist. The scene was too terrifying, and the onlookers felt a chill down their spines. Those were supremes, who were considered high and mighty experts even in the godly ruins continent, but now, they were like weak chickens being killed by Lu Ming without being able to fight back. Beast, don't go, fight with me. Haiyu roared, and his eyes were red. These were the supremes of the sea suppressing marshal's residence, and so many of them were killed consecutively. His heart was bleeding. He controlled the emperor's spiritual weapon to slash at Lu Ming, but Lu Ming's figure flickered, and he did not fight with Haiyu at all. He avoided Haiyu and focused on killing the ordinary supremes. Bang! Another punch, and another supreme martial artist was killed. Lu Ming had already killed 5 of the supremes that Haiyu had brought with him. In addition to the previous ones, there were more than 5 of them. How could this be? Hai Tian, who was watching the battle from afar, was in disbelief. He rubbed his eyes hard, hoping that all of this was fake. Lu Ming, I didn't expect your cultivation to improve so much after not seeing you for a while. You have reached the perfect spirit god realm. Dandan stood on Lu Ming's shoulder and laughed, feeling very happy and elated. It's your turn. Lu Ming whispered as he looked at the flood dragon sovereign and the other sea demons. Retreat, retreat, follow behind me. The flood dragon sovereign's expression changed. The sword chi of the dragon vein sword soared into the sky as he stared at Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming used the wind origin technique, and his figure was like a phantom. With a few flashes, he avoided the flood dragon sovereign and attacked the other supremes. Join forces, gather together and join forces. A sea demon roared, and the other supremes gathered together, hoping to join forces to fight against Lu Ming. Unfortunately, Lu Ming's current combat strength had far surpassed theirs. Bang! The fist crushed down, breaking everything. The phantom of the suppressing prison monument suppressed a supremacy. The supremacy screamed as his body was penetrated, and he died on the spot. Lu Ming was like an invincible war god, invincible. Roar! 9 dragons appeared above Lu Ming's head, and Lu Ming transformed into 9 dragons. At the same time, the third bloodline appeared, and its power was even more shocking. The dragon claws slashed out continuously, tearing apart everything, directly killing several sea demon supremes. In just a few breaths of time, 4 sea demon supremes had been killed. Let's join forces and kill him. Haiyu rushed over with his battle axe. Kill! The flood dragon sovereign also roared and charged towards Lu Ming with killing intent. The 2 of them joined forces and surrounded Lu Ming, charging toward him. It's time to settle the score with you. Chapter 1303. Whoosh! 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 Following that, the dragon claws clawed out continuously. Each dragon claw used a different attack. One dragon claw shone with a yellow light. It was the earth element technique. Another dragon claw was filled with lightning that turned into a spear. It was the lightning element technique. In addition, there was the fire element technique, wind element technique, and water element technique. In the Primal Chaos Palace's test, Lu Ming was able to fuse 5 martial techniques into one. At this moment, using 5 martial techniques at the same time was a piece of cake. The 9 dragon claws clawed at Hai Yu and the Flood Dragon Supreme. Die! Hai Yu shouted coldly as he desperately activated his battle axe. His eyes were filled with malevolence. At the same time, the Flood Dragon Supreme was also filled with killing intent. Lu Ming actually stopped running and wanted to fight them head-on. This was exactly what they wanted. They were ecstatic. They wanted to get rid of Lu Ming in one go. What is Lu Ming doing? He's courting death. That's too unwise. The people watching from afar exclaimed when they saw this scene. Lu Ming's battle strength was strong, but that was only for ordinary Supremes. Hai Yu and the Flood Dragon Supreme were both top Supremes. Their battle strength was terrifying enough. It wouldn't be too difficult for them to kill an ordinary Supremes. Furthermore, they also had Emperor spiritual weapons. With their Emperor spiritual weapons, their battle strength was definitely comparable to an ordinary Emperor realm expert. Lu Ming was courting death by fighting them head-on. Boom! 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 Lu Ming's attack finally collided with Hai Yu's and the Flood Dragon Supreme's attacks. At this moment, a violent force swept across tens of thousands of miles. In the ancient city below, countless buildings collapsed and turned into ashes. Not good, retreat. The people watching from afar frantically retreated, afraid that they would be swept in. Heavens, look, Lu Ming has the upper hand. Someone exclaimed as they retreated. Everyone hurriedly looked over and saw 2 figures rapidly retreating. The figures retreating were actually the Flood Dragon Supreme and Hai Yu. How was this possible? Hai Yu and the Flood Dragon Sovereign joined forces. Both of them wielded Emperor-tier spirit weapons, but they were not a match for Lu Ming. They were repelled by Lu Ming. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it even if they were beaten to death. Impossible. How could this be? Hai Yu and Flood Dragon Sovereign also roared in disbelief. The 2 of them found it hard to believe. How could Lu Ming be so strong? A while ago, Lu Ming was not their opponent at all. He was completely suppressed by them. Even with the 2 pets, he was still far from being their opponent. However, Lu Ming had only disappeared for a short while. When he reappeared, his combat power had soared sharply, and he could easily kill ordinary supreme martial artists. Now, he was actually able to repel them without relying on pets or weapons. What was going on? Could it be that Lu Ming had been hiding his strength all this time? Hai Yu, Flood Dragon Supremacy, and the others felt as though their minds couldn't process what was happening. He must have used some kind of secret technique to increase his battle prowess. If we join hands, he won't be able to hold on for long. Hai Yu roared at the Flood Dragon Sovereign. Kill! Kill! Then, Hai Yu and the Flood Dragon Sovereign joined hands and charged towards Lu Ming. Is that so? Lu Ming's eyes flashed with a cold smile. The lightning cauldron appeared above his head and smashed towards Hai Yu. As for Lu Ming, he charged towards the Flood Dragon Sovereign. Swoosh! This time, Lu Ming only clawed out once. However, this time, Lu Ming had fused 5 types of martial skills together. When the 5 types of martial skills were fused together, their power instantly soared. The Dragon Claw collided with the Flood Dragon Sovereign's Dragon Vein Sword. Clang! The Dragon Vein Sword shook violently. The sword energy dissipated and it was sent flying far away. Not good. The Flood Dragon Sovereign's expression changed as he retreated. However, it was already too late. Lu Ming's attack came again. It was another claw. Once again, it was the fusion of 5 types of martial skills. The Flood Dragon Sovereign also stretched out his dragon claw and tried his best to block. However, the moment it came into contact with Lu Ming's dragon claw, it exploded. Poochie. Lu Ming's dragon claw did not stop as it pierced through the Flood Dragon Sovereign's body. Roar. The Flood Dragon Sovereign let out a violent roar. His eyes were filled with endless fear. He wanted to struggle and escape, but the other dragon claws of the 9 dragons had already reached him. The dragon claws contained the suppressing hell heavenly art as they all bombarded the Flood Dragon Sovereign's head. Bang! 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 After 7 to 8 consecutive explosions, the Flood Dragon Sovereign's head was pierced through and exploded. The Flood Dragon Sovereign had fallen. The Flood Dragon Sovereign, who possessed 90% of the true dragon's bloodline, was still killed by Lu Ming while controlling an emperor-grade spiritual weapon. If I use the primal chaos intent, it will be easier to kill the Flood Dragon Sovereign. A thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind. Lu Ming did not use the primal chaos intent. At most, he would convert it into the lightning intent, wind intent, etc. The primal chaos intent was Lu Ming's trump card. Unless it was a critical moment, Lu Ming would not use it easily. Not good. On the other hand, after Hai Yu exchanged a blow with the Thunder Cauldron, he saw the scene of the Supreme Flood Dragon being killed. He was so frightened that he almost wet his pants. At this moment, he only had one thought in his mind, and that was to escape. He had to run as far away as possible from Lu Ming. Hai Yu turned around and ran, frantically flying towards the ancient city's exit. Big brother, bring me along. Hai Tian cried out in fear from afar. However, Hai Yu was already scared out of his wits. At this moment, he only wanted to save his life. How could he care about Hai Tian? He pretended that he did not hear anything and continued to run. Big brother, Hai Tian roared, filled with despair. Whoosh! Lu Ming turned back into his human form and took a step forward, appearing beside Hai Tian. Hai Tian was so scared that he kept screaming. Lu Ming, what are you trying to do? My father is the sea-suppressing marshal. You can't kill me. If you kill me, you will die too. Hai Tian cried out. At this moment, he was still trying to threaten Lu Ming. Whoosh! Lu Ming waved his hand, and a spear light flew out, piercing through Hai Tian's dantian and shattering his spiritual deity. Hai Tian's eyes widened as he stared at Lu Ming. He did not expect Lu Ming to be so straightforward. He did not say anything and killed him in one move. Hai Tian's life force dissipated with an intense unwillingness. The remaining sea demons and primes in the sea-suppressing marshal's residence had already fled for their lives. Lu Ming looked in the direction that Hai Yu fled in. He was not in a hurry to give chase. Instead, his quintessence burst out, forming a strong suction force, attracting all the prime's corpses over. The mountain and river diagram in Lu Ming's forehead flew out and collected all the prime's corpses. The prime's corpses contained essence blood. Lu Ming still needed the essence blood to raise the hell-suppressing steel's bloodline grade. He could not waste it. After collecting the prime's corpses, Lu Ming entered the mountain and river diagram with a thought. Inside the mountain and river diagram, there was a mountain peak piled with prime's corpses. At the side, Xian Yanqing and Thunder Rhino Prime were staring at it with their mouths agape. Chapter 1304. Supremes, they are all Supremes' corpses. Thunder Rhino Supreme muttered to himself. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Especially when he saw the corpse of Flood Dragon Supreme, he was even more shocked. He could naturally feel that Flood Dragon Supreme's bloodline contained 90% of the true dragon's blood. Even such a powerful Supremes were dead. Could it be that he was killed by Lu Ming? Thunder Rhino Supreme looked at Lu Ming. After feeling the terrifying killing intent on Lu Ming's body and the suffocating power, his heart trembled. How long has it been? He's already so powerful? Thunder Rhino Supreme only felt his whole body tremble. Lu Ming casually glanced at Thunder Rhino Supreme. Back when he suppressed Thunder Rhino Supreme, Dandan engraved a large formation on Thunder Rhino Supreme's body. During this period, Thunder Rhino Supreme had been obediently staying in the mountain river diagram. However, Lu Ming knew that Thunder Rhino Supreme was definitely not convinced and wanted to find an opportunity to escape. Lu Ming came in this time with the intention of intimidating the Supreme Thunder Rhino. Sure enough, Lu Ming's Supreme was completely shocked when he saw so many Supreme's corpses. Thunder Rhino, come out with me and chase after the enemy. Lu Ming's voice sounded, and Thunder Rhino Supreme nodded repeatedly. Little Qin, let's go out together. Lu Ming waved his hand, and Xian Yanqing and Thunder Rhino Supreme were brought out of the mountain river diagram by Lu Ming. Thunder Rhino, go, over there. Lu Ming said and pointed in the direction of the ancient city's exit. At this time, Haiyu had already escaped from the exit. Yes. Thunder Rhino Supreme's body grew rapidly. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing stood on Thunder Rhino Supreme's body. Thunder Rhino Supreme roared and flew toward the ancient city's exit. Oh my god, Lu Ming's combat strength is too strong. He can completely stand shoulder to shoulder with an emperor, or even suppress one. It's too terrifying. Lu Ming's cultivation is only at the perfection stage of the domain enlightened spirit god realm, yet his combat strength is so shocking. I've never even heard of him. The point is, how old is Lu Ming? Pervert, demon. Lu Ming must have gone after Haiyu. Let's go out and take a look. The spectators were in an uproar, unable to control their emotions. Even some Supreme Being experts lost control and started shouting. The fluctuations caused by Lu Ming were simply too shocking. Then, the group of people rushed toward the ancient city's exit. After a while, Lu Ming rode the Thunder Rhino to the exit of the ancient city. The Thunder Rhino rushed in and in the next moment, they appeared in the deep sea. A huge pressure pressed down on them. Crash. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the surrounding seawater seemed to be controlled by Lu Ming. It automatically parted, and a passage appeared. Moo. The Thunder Rhino Supreme was shocked by Lu Ming's means. Then, it roared and rushed up. With Lu Ming's help, Thunder Rhino's speed was extremely fast. Like a bolt of lightning, they rushed up. In a short while, they rushed out of the deep sea that was 300,000 meters deep and out of the surface of the sea. As soon as they rushed out of the sea, Lu Ming found that the sky was densely packed with people. When Lu Ming rushed out, everyone's eyes fell on Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming's eyes fell on one of them. Haiyu. After rushing out of the sea, Haiyu didn't run away. At this moment, he was looking at Lu Ming coldly, full of killing intent. Lu Ming, how's my brother, Hai Tian? Haiyu shouted. He wants to kill me. What do you think? Don't worry, I'll send you down to accompany him right away. Lu Ming sneered. His words caused an uproar. What? Just now, I saw Haiyu rushing out with a frightened face. Is it because of him? How can it be? Although Lu Ming's combat strength is strong, it's impossible for him to be Haiyu's opponent. Strange, who on earth got the cultivation method of the pure spirit body? Previously, the people waiting outside suddenly saw Haiyu running out of the sea with a frightened face. They were all very surprised. With Haiyu's cultivation, how could it be? They all guessed that some powerful monster had appeared at the bottom of the sea, and even Haiyu was no match for it. However, at this moment, it seemed that Haiyu fled in fear because of Lu Ming. How dare you kill the people of my sea-suppressing marshal's residence? You should be executed by 1,000 cuts. At this time, a cold voice came from the side of Haiyu. Lu Ming looked over and his pupils shrank slightly. An old man in a purple gold robe stood beside Haiyu. Just now, the old man's aura had been restrained, and he looked like an ordinary old man, so Lu Ming didn't notice him just now. But now, As the old man spoke, a domineering aura bloomed from his body, and a heavy pressure pressed on Lu Ming. Emperor! Lu Ming couldn't help but exclaim. At the same time, he also understood why Haiyu didn't escape. It turned out that there was an emperor from the sea suppressing Marshall's residence here. This was a real emperor. Not good, it's an emperor, run. Under Lu Ming's feet, Thunder Rhino Supreme screamed in horror when he sensed the aura of the old man in the purple gold robe. He turned around and was about to run away. Bang! Lu Ming slapped Thunder Rhino Supreme's head, and it almost exploded. Thunder Rhino Supreme's head buzzed, and he was stunned for a moment. Why are you running? Isn't it just an emperor? Why are you so scared? Lu Ming glanced at Thunder Rhino Supreme and said disdainfully. But this is an emperor. Thunder Rhino Supreme was still scared to death, but after seeing Lu Ming's glare, he was so scared that his whole body trembled. He could only stop and look at the old man in the purple gold robe with a vigilant face. He wailed in his heart, lamenting that Lu Ming was courting death, but he didn't want to drag him down. Lu Ming actually didn't escape. The same thought flashed in the hearts of others. Facing an emperor, he probably knows that he can't escape, so he simply stopped running. Someone guessed. I've already killed Hai Tian, and I'll kill Haiyu too. If you want to stop me, it depends on whether you have the ability or not. Lu Ming smiled faintly. What a big tone. The purple gold-robed old man shouted coldly, but in his heart, he didn't dare to underestimate Lu Ming. Haiyu had already roughly told him about Lu Ming's combat strength just now. He knew very well how strong Haiyu, who controlled an emperor's spiritual weapon, was. Even if he was weaker than him, it wasn't by much. However, Lu Ming could suppress Haiyu, so one could only imagine how strong his combat strength was. Nonsense, let's see how you're going to stop me. Kill. Lu Ming couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with the other party. He shouted coldly, took a step forward, and charged towards Haiyu. Arrogant, I'd like to see how strong you are. Earth Domain. The purple gold-robed old man stretched out his palm and pressed the void. A yellow circle spread out and enveloped Lu Ming. Domain, this was a real domain, not the embryonic form of a sovereign's domain. The speed of understanding was astonishing. As soon as it appeared, it enveloped Lu Ming. All of a sudden, Lu Ming felt a terrifying pressure on his body. It was as if a few hundred mountains were pressing down on him. Chapter 1305. Domains of different attributes could produce different effects, but their power was still very shocking. This was the Earth Domain. Not only did it have the effect of trapping the enemy, but it also had a terrifying offensive ability. Once someone below the Emperor realm was trapped in the domain, they would not be able to fight back and would be at the mercy of others. Open up. A dragon's roar came from Lu Ming's body as 9 streams of dragon force burst out. At the same time, he borrowed the power of the third bloodline, which gave Lu Ming a terrifying strength. Boom! Lu Ming's palm was like a knife as he executed the hell-suppressing heaven skill and slashed out. Rip! This palm was like a heavenly saber that appeared in the world. When the saber struck, heaven and earth would be split open. An extremely powerful force erupted. The earth domain of the purple golden-robed elder shook violently and a hole was forcefully torn open by Lu Ming. The purple golden-robed elder's face changed. His figure swayed and he appeared in the domain. He pointed at Lu Ming. I'd like to see the strength of an Emperor Realm expert. The true origin in Lu Ming's body boiled as he exerted his cultivation of the spiritual god perfection stage to the extreme. Lu Ming struck out again and this time, his palm collided with the elder's finger. Boom! With a loud explosion, the earth domain shook violently. Lu Ming felt a terrifying force surging toward him. He stepped on the void and retreated continuously. However, the purple golden-robed elder's figure also retreated a few steps. That's a spiritual body. What a powerful force. Lu Ming exhaled a mouthful of turbid air as he pondered. A Emperor Realm expert was indeed extraordinary. The purple golden-robed elder's cultivation was at the LV-1 martial royal realm, but his combat strength was considered strong even among the LV-1 martial royal realm experts. Lu Ming was slightly at a disadvantage in the previous attack. However, Lu Ming's combat strength was far from being fully displayed. Even so, the purple golden-robed elder's heart trembled violently. What a terrifying force! Is he still a spiritual god perfection stage martial artist? The purple golden-robed elder's eyes were filled with seriousness. On the other hand, the others at the side had long since been flabbergasted and were stunned on the spot. Lu Ming was actually able to fight against a ruler. He was shrouded in a ruler's domain, but he was still able to fight against a ruler head-on. It was unbelievable. Again. Lu Ming took a step back and stomped on the void, shattering it. However, Lu Ming continued to pounce on the purple golden-robed elder. In the process of rushing out, the 9 dragons' bloodline appeared. Lu Ming used bloodline fusion and turned into 9 dragons. Whoosh! Whoosh! After Xiao Chen turned into 9 dragons, he swung his dragon claws and executed all sorts of state martial techniques. Using so many types of martial skills at the same time. The purple gold-robed elder had a grave expression on his face. His palms glowed as a pair of spirit weapon gloves appeared on his hands. Of course, this was not a ruler's spirit weapon. It was just an ordinary level 9 spirit weapon. A ruler's spirit weapon, the ruler of spirit weapons, was not something that ordinary people could possess. Many rulers did not even have one. Wearing the spirit weapon gloves, the purple golden-robed elder's body swelled slightly. His muscles squirmed and a layer of yellow light appeared on the surface of his muscles. The purple golden-robed elder raised the power of his spirit body to the extreme and threw out a few punches in succession. The power of each punch was much stronger than the power of the previous finger. The fist force collided with the 9 dragons' dragon claws. However, this time, the purple golden-robed elder's expression changed drastically when the two came into contact. His body shook and the yellow light on his body trembled. Boom! 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 After a few explosions, the purple golden-robed elder's body was directly sent flying. He retreated a few thousand meters in the air and slid out a few thousand meters long spatial crack. However, Lu Ming's body did not move at all. At the scene, everyone was stunned once again. The ruler was actually at a disadvantage and was sent flying a few thousand meters. The strength of a ruler is just so. Since you want to fight, I'll send you to hell first. Lu Ming shouted coldly. His dragon body twisted and he charged toward the purple golden-robed elder. How can he be so strong? The purple golden-robed elder was shocked as he forcibly suppressed the surging qi and blood in his body. His combat strength was considered strong even among LV-1 martial emperors, but now, he was no match for a young man at the perfect spiritual god realm. This was like a fantasy story. How could a martial artist at the perfect spiritual god realm have such powerful combat strength? If it were an ordinary perfect spiritual god, he could kill a lot of them with one slap. Seeing Lu Ming charging toward him again, the purple golden-robed elder could only use his full strength to fight against Lu Ming. Boom! 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 The two fought fiercely. However, Lu Ming's strength had increased greatly after transforming into 9 dragons. Moreover, the dragon claws were displaying different martial techniques with different intents. Some of the dragon claws were also displaying the hell-suppressing heaven skill, which brought great pressure to the purple golden-robed elder. Although the purple golden-robed elder tried his best, he was no match for Lin Fan and was at a disadvantage. After a few moves, he was clawed by Lu Ming's claws. If it wasn't for the fact that he had cultivated a spiritual body of the Great Earth's spiritual body, which specialized in defense, he would have already died. Even so, he still felt a burning pain all over his body and spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, the surface of the sea rolled and many people rushed out. They were the experts who had gone into the ancient city at the bottom of the sea. As soon as they rushed out, they were shocked to see Lu Ming and the purple golden-robed elder fighting. That's an emperor. God, Lu Ming has completely suppressed the emperor. The emperor is injured. Exclamations sounded. They had seen Lu Ming's combat prowess in the ancient city. However, when they saw Lu Ming injuring an emperor with their own eyes, the impact was still very great. Boom! Boom! The battle continued. After more than 10 moves, the purple golden-robed elder was beaten until he spat out large mouthfuls of blood. His hair was disheveled and he was in an extremely sorry state. He was completely suppressed by Lu Ming. Even if he had a domain and a spiritual body, it was useless. Lu Ming's strength was too strong and had completely surpassed his. It's time to end this. Lu Ming shouted and clawed out. This claw was a fusion of 5 types of martial techniques, and a chaotic light flashed. This claw made the purple golden-robed elder feel a fatal threat. Slash! The purple golden-robed elder roared. A battle axe suddenly appeared in his hand. The battle axe quickly enlarged and turned into a giant axe that stood between heaven and earth. An extremely terrifying emperor's aura was emitted. It was an emperor's spiritual weapon. This battle axe was the one that Hai Yu had used before. It seemed that Hai Yu had already given the emperor's spiritual weapon to the purple golden-robed elder. No wonder Hai Yu was so confident and stayed here. An emperor using an emperor's spiritual weapon was completely different from a supreme being using an emperor's spiritual weapon. A supreme being using an emperor's spiritual weapon would not be able to unleash the true power of an emperor's spiritual weapon. On the other hand, an emperor's spiritual weapon would be extremely terrifying. The purple golden-robed elder controlled the battle axe as if he could split heaven and earth. Whoosh! Chapter 1306. Boom! The force swept across tens of thousands of miles. A resplendent spot of light appeared where the axe collided with the dragon claw, and a circle of ripples visible to the naked eye was emitted. Whoosh! Huge waves were stirred up in the ocean below. The waves swept high into the sky as if it was the end of the world. The space was completely annihilated, revealing a pitch-black space. The clouds in the sky instantly disappeared without a trace. Fortunately, the spectators were far enough away. Otherwise, if they were swept by this force, no one below the Supreme Being level would be able to survive. Even so, such a horrifying scene still made many people tremble and retreat. Sizzle! The place where the giant axe and the dragon claw intersected emitted a sizzling sound as the dragon claw kept shaking. Bang! In the end, Lu Ming's attack was no match for the giant axe and was defeated. The dragon claw exploded, and the 9 dragons' bodies were sent flying hundreds of miles away by a powerful force. Fortunately, the 9 dragons were formed by Lu Ming's bloodline power. After the dragon claw exploded, it immediately condensed again. What a powerful force! An emperor using an emperor's spiritual weapon is indeed not something a supreme being can compare to. Lu Ming's gaze was somewhat solemn. When Hai Yu used an emperor's spiritual weapon, his combat strength reached the level of an ordinary emperor. However, when the purple golden-robed elder used an emperor's spiritual weapon, its power was undoubtedly more shocking and several times stronger. Lu Ming is no match for him. An emperor using an emperor's spiritual weapon is too powerful. Lu Ming is no match for him at all. He's finished. Is such a person going to die here today? Many people exclaimed, some gloated, and some felt pity. I knew it. An emperor using an emperor's spiritual weapon will completely suppress Lu Ming. Lu Ming, you want to fight me? Go to hell. Hai Yu laughed, his eyes incomparably ferocious. It's over, it's over. In the distance, Thunder Rhino Supreme kept growling. Previously, Lu Ming had displayed his invincible might and seriously injured an emperor, making Thunder Rhino Supreme think that he was dreaming. Back when Lu Ming had fought him, he had needed to rely on the lightning cauldron and his pet to defeat and suppress him. Now, only a few months had passed, and Lu Ming could rely on his own strength to defeat a ruler, let alone him. If Lu Ming wanted to kill him, he could probably do it with a slap. Originally, he had already made up his mind to follow Lu Ming obediently in the future. With such a prodigy like him, perhaps being Lu Ming's mount would be a blessing in disguise in the future. However, when he saw that Lu Ming was at a disadvantage, his heart sank. And what? Lu Ming will not lose. Xian Yanqing slapped Thunder Rhino Supremacy's head and berated. She was very confident in Lu Ming. Moreover, she also knew that Lu Ming had cultivated the legendary concept of primal chaos. Until now, Lu Ming had not used the concept of primal chaos. He still won't lose? Thunder Rhino Supreme was doubtful. Die. The purple golden-robed old man held a battle axe in his hand and slashed out. The heaven-raising battle axe split the space in half. The powerful power completely enveloped Lu Ming, making it impossible for Lu Ming to dodge. Let's see how far I can go without using the concept of primal chaos. Lu Ming's eyes revealed a strong fighting spirit. Above his head, the lightning cauldron appeared and turned into the size of a mountain, rushing toward the battle axe. At the same time, he used the 9 dragon steps and clawed out again. It was also a fusion of 5 concepts. Clang! The lightning cauldron was the first to bear the brunt. It collided with the battle axe and was sent flying by the battle axe. Immediately, Lu Ming's attack arrived and blasted on the battle axe. Amidst the rumbling, Lu Ming retreated again. However, this time, he retreated a lot less than the last time because the lightning cauldron offset a portion of the battle axe's power. It's only so-so. Come again. Lu Ming controlled the lightning cauldron and attacked again. Lu Ming did not use the concept of primal chaos. Instead, he used the lightning cauldron to support him. He mainly used 5 concepts to fight an intense battle with the purple golden-robed old man. In this way, although Lu Ming was still at a slight disadvantage, it was not a one-sided situation. The two fought fiercely, and the surrounding tens of thousands of miles became their battlefield. In the sea, huge waves surged. That island was swept by a terrifying force and directly exploded, turning into ashes and disappearing from the sea. In the distant sky, countless figures stood, staring at the battlefield with their eyes wide open. They held their breaths, not willing to miss a single moment. Some primes' eyes even lit up as they stared fixedly. It was rare to see sovereigns go all out in a life-and-death battle, which inspired them. Soon, the two exchanged over 100 moves. Good, 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 haha. Lu Ming roared and laughed. In this battle, aside from the concept of primal chaos, he did not hold back at all. He used his full strength and fought to his heart's content. During this period, he had improved too quickly, and his foundation was somewhat unstable. After this battle, he had completely stabilized it, becoming as firm as a rock. At the same time, during the battle, Lu Ming felt that his comprehension of the 5 concepts became deeper and deeper. It seemed like he could break through at any time. Furthermore, Lu Ming used them together. Once he broke through, the 5 concepts would all break through and reach the 4th level. When the 5 concepts reached the 4th level, their might would undoubtedly increase. Damn it! How can a mere consummation spiritual god ant have such shocking combat strength? The more the battle, the more horrified the purple golden-robed old man became. This brat must be killed. Otherwise, there will be endless trouble. I'll just drag it out with him. As a sovereign, my veritable essence energy is definitely more boundless than his, so I can last longer. The purple golden-robed old man pondered. After making up his mind, he continued to charge at Lu Ming. In the blink of an eye, the two exchanged over a dozen moves. Suddenly, Lu Ming's dragon claw slashed out. Its power was a level higher than before. I broke through. My concept martial technique broke through. Lu Ming was overjoyed. After an intense battle, Lu Ming's 5 types of concept martial techniques finally broke through and entered the 4th level. Boom! In this exchange, Lu Ming retreated, but the purple golden-robed old man was also repelled. A draw. Lu Ming was at a disadvantage at the beginning, but now, with the help of the lightning cauldron, he was able to draw with the purple golden-robed old man. Ah, damn it. The purple golden-robed old man naturally sensed the breakthrough of Lu Ming's concept martial technique. He roared in his heart, and he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. After an intense battle, not only did he not kill Lu Ming, but he also helped Lu Ming break through. How could this be? He only felt a breath in his chest, and it was so uncomfortable that he wanted to die. How depressing. Not only did he not kill Lu Ming, but he also helped Lu Ming. I really have to thank you. However, this battle should end here. Lu Ming laughed. A misty aura spread out from his body, turning into a chaotic color. The lightning cauldron shook slightly and quickly shrank, flying back to Lu Ming's forehead and disappearing. At the same time, Lu Ming's body also shrank, returning to his human form. Lu Ming put away the lightning cauldron and returned to his human form. He stepped toward the purple golden-robed old man. What is he doing? Chapter 1307. Lu Ming's action made the onlookers somewhat dumbstruck. Originally, Lu Ming could already contend with the purple gold-robed old man with the lightning cauldron. However, now, Lu Ming actually put away the lightning cauldron and even cancelled the bloodline fusion. Then, he charged at the purple gold-robed old man. What is he doing? Is he trying to commit suicide? Countless people were puzzled. Acting all mysterious. Who cares what you are trying to do? Go to hell. The purple gold-robed old man roared in his heart. He held the huge axe with both hands and poured quintessential essence into it. At the same time, he controlled the domain and activated the power of the axe's domain, pushing the axe's might to its limits. Whoosh! The huge axe, which was larger than a mountain, chopped down at Lu Ming. Facing this axe, Lu Ming remained calm. He had no intention of using the lightning cauldron to resist. Prison suppression. Lu Ming clenched his fists, and his muscles wriggled. Primal chaos chi spread out from his body, especially his fists, where the primal chaos chi was the densest. Lu Ming finally executed the state of primal chaos. Lu Ming used his quintessential essence, the 9 dragon energies, and the 3rd bloodline as a foundation to execute the prison-suppressing heavenly art. Then, he punched with the state of primal chaos. Rumble. Lu Ming's fist seemed slow, but it was actually extremely fast as it punched at the purple gold-robed old man. What is Lu Ming trying to do? He is actually using his physical body to fight against a ruler spirit weapon? Crazy. Is he crazy? Is he courting death? An outstanding talent of a generation has fallen. Lu Ming's actions caused an uproar. Lu Ming did not use the lightning cauldron and cancelled the bloodline fusion. In the end, he used his physical body to fight against a ruler spirit weapon. If this was not crazy, what was? No one could figure out why Lu Ming would do such a thing. Haha. Who cares if you are crazy? Go to hell. Hai Yu's eyes revealed excitement. His face turned sinister as he laughed in his heart. Only one person, no, only one tortoise, saw through the trick. It was Dandan. That's the concept of primal chaos. Nestle, when did Lu Ming grasp the concept of primal chaos? Dandan was tongue-tied. Its eyes were wide open and filled with disbelief. Boom! Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, Lu Ming's fist heavily collided with the Emperor-rank spirit weapon battle axe. In everyone's imagination, Lu Ming would be easily defeated, heavily injured, or even killed by the axe. Instead, an inconceivable scene appeared. When the fist and the battle axe collided, the battle axe actually let out a violent roar and vibrated continuously. At this moment, the purple golden-robed elder seemed to have been hit by a terrifying force. His arms and even his body trembled along with the giant axe. Then, his face turned pale and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Wang! The giant axe vibrated and the purple golden-robed elder could no longer hold on to it. The giant axe flew out of his hand and into the sky. There was complete silence between heaven and earth. Everyone was stunned. Their eyes were wide open and their mouths were agape. It was as if something was stuck in their throats, preventing them from making a sound. Chaotic concept, it's really the chaotic concept. Only Dandan was muttering to himself. Chirp chirp, Bubble looked harmless and innocent. It blinked its innocent eyes and seemed to be cheering for Lu Ming. This guy, Xian Yanqing whispered. Even though he knew that Lu Ming had successfully cultivated the chaotic concept, he was still shocked by its power. As for Thunder Rhino Supreme, he was completely petrified. The power of the chaotic concept is indeed amazing. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. Legend had it that heaven and earth evolved from the chaotic concept. There was chaotic chi in heaven and earth. It was the most original and precious treasure. Legend had it that a wisp of chaotic chi could crush the sky and collapse a mountain range. It was extremely heavy. The chaotic concept also had the characteristics of chaotic chi. It was extremely heavy and powerful. Coupled with the hell-suppressing heaven skill, it complemented each other perfectly. With a punch, the purple golden-robed elder's giant axe was sent flying. Through the giant axe, the purple golden-robed elder was injured. Kill! Lu Ming shouted and stepped out. Surrounded by the chaotic concept, he punched out again. Boom! Wherever Lu Ming's fist passed, the sky began to collapse. It was as if a black hole had appeared in the sky. The chaotic concept spread out and completely locked onto the purple golden-robed elder. The purple golden-robed elder's expression changed drastically. He roared and punched out with all his strength, hoping to block it. Boom! The moment the two fists met, the purple golden-robed elder's domain collapsed and exploded under the terrifying pressure. Then, it broke through the purple golden-robed elder's fist and landed on his fist. Crack! The sound of bones breaking rang out. Even though the purple golden-robed elder had cultivated a spiritual body, it was useless. His palm was distorted and his entire arm was twisted. The purple golden-robed elder screamed and his body was sent flying a few hundred miles away. His face was pale and blood was spurting out of his mouth. But the purple golden-robed elder didn't dare to stay. He turned around and ran. Wind Origin Art. Lu Ming used the Wind Origin Art. His figure was like a phantom as he flashed and quickly approached the purple golden-robed elder. He punched out from 100 miles away. When the fist force was released, the space within a few hundred miles in front of Lu Ming was smashed. The terrifying fist force was like a surging flood, surging toward the purple golden-robed elder. This was a suppression of power. It was simple and direct, but there was no way to dodge. The purple golden-robed elder could only fight back. But now that he had lost his spiritual weapon, Lu Ming could suppress him even if he didn't use the chaotic concept. He wasn't a match for Lu Ming at all. The purple golden-robed elder was like a little chick as he tumbled in the air. Crackling sounds came from his body as blood spurted out of his mouth. It's time to end this. A deep voice came from Lu Ming's mouth. Lu Ming used the Wind Origin Art and appeared in front of the purple golden-robed elder in a flash. He clenched his fist and the chaotic concept formed a long spear. The long spear was like lightning as it pierced toward the purple golden-robed elder's dantian. No, spare me, the purple golden-robed elder roared, but Lu Ming didn't move at all. The long spear continued to pierce down. Puff! The long spear formed by the chaotic concept was incomparably sharp. It easily pierced through the elder's dantian and pierced through his spiritual spirit. The power of the long spear exploded. The purple golden-robed elder let out an unwilling scream. But after a breath, there was no more sound as his vitality completely dissipated. The purple golden-robed elder, an emperor of a generation, was dead. Heavens, the onlookers felt numb after seeing this scene. They couldn't say a word. Impossible. Haiyu roared. His eyes were red with disbelief. It's your turn. Lu Ming fixed his gaze on Haiyu. His figure moved and he headed toward Haiyu. No, Haiyu's body turned cold as he fled like a madman. However, even an emperor could not escape from Lu Ming's hands, let alone him. The wind essence skill allowed him to move at extreme speed. He caught up with Haiyu in an instant and threw a punch. The chaos concept suppressed Haiyu. Haiyu screamed and his body was torn apart. Even his spirit deity exploded. Chapter 1308. Hiss, hiss, hiss. At the scene, the sound of people gasping could be heard. It was only now that the spectators reacted. Everyone looked at Lu Ming in shock. A ruler had been killed by Lu Ming. This result was beyond everyone's expectations. It was too shocking. That was a ruler. In history, there were also peerless geniuses who could cross realms to fight. It was not rare for a supreme being to cross realms to fight a ruler. Nonetheless, it was only a great battle. It was only a confrontation, not a suppression. There were very few people who could suppress a ruler as a supreme being. Not to mention killing a ruler. Even if a ruler was no match for a ruler, he would still have a high chance of escaping. Moreover, a supreme being had cultivated a spiritual body. Their vitality was extremely vigorous, and it was very difficult to kill them. There were not many cases of a supreme being killing a ruler in the continent of divine ruins since ancient times. However, Lu Ming's cultivation level was only at the perfected spirit god realm. A perfected spirit god realm cultivator could kill an emperor. Such an example had never happened in the continent of God and there were no records of it. It was unheard of. Lu Ming had created history. Countless pairs of eyes looked at Lu Ming. They were filled with shock and deep fear. Who else wants to stop me? Lu Ming's eyes were like lightning as he swept his gaze in all directions. All the powerhouses, including the supreme beings, hurriedly lowered their heads after meeting Lu Ming's eyes. They did not dare to look directly at Lu Ming. Those powerhouses who had entered the ancient city at the bottom of the sea all knew that Lu Ming had obtained the cultivation method of the pure spirit body, but none of them dared to speak. What a joke. Lu Ming had even killed a ruler. If anyone spoke, wouldn't they be courting death? In that case, Lei Shi, let's go. Lu Ming waved his hand and put the body of the purple gold-robed old man into the mountain river diagram. Then, he returned to the back of Lei Shi Supreme and said, "Moo." Lei Shi Supreme roared excitedly. His body was filled with lightning. He spread his legs and ran toward the sea. He was so excited. Now, he was completely in awe of Lu Ming. He had already made up his mind to follow Lu Ming for the rest of his life. Even if Lu Ming chased him away, he would still shamelessly follow Lu Ming. A perfect stage spirit god could kill a ruler. Such a genius had never appeared in history. In the future, it was certain that he would become a ruler. In fact, it would be easy for him to dominate the continent of God and become the strongest powerhouse there. He might even be able to create waves in the Yuan continent and become an important figure there. If Thunder Rhino supremacy didn't follow such a genius with a boundless future, then he would be a fool. As long as he stayed by Lu Ming's side obediently, he would definitely benefit from Lu Ming's rise in the future. Originally, he had no hope of breaking through to become a ruler, but now, a glimmer of hope appeared in his heart. Dong dong dong, Thunder Rhino supremacy ran with all his might. His body was filled with lightning. He cut through the void like a bolt of lightning, passing through layers of the sea and heading toward the deep sea. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing sat cross-legged on Thunder Rhino supremacy's back. They were as steady as a mountain. Nest, Lu Ming, you've actually cultivated the chaos concept. Impressive, you're really impressive. I know now. You disappeared for more than 10 breaths in the deep sea ancient city. At that time, the primordial chaos token appeared. Did the primordial chaos token bring you to the chaos hall? Dandan jumped on Lu Ming's shoulder and mumbled a bunch of questions. Dandan was worthy of being an old monster. He was experienced and knowledgeable and guessed the general idea right away. Yes, you guessed right. Lu Ming nodded. Amazing, Lu Ming. I didn't misjudge you. It seems like you've obtained the inheritance of the Chaos Emperor. Dandan said. Dandan, do you know the Chaos Emperor? Lu Ming asked curiously. Of course I know him. That guy is very powerful. He's on the same level as me. Dandan said proudly with his claws behind his back. You're bragging. Lu Ming curled his lips. He knew from 2E that the Chaos Emperor was one of the pinnacle existences in the world. Not many people could compare to him. Even the Spacetime Spirit Mouse, the Spacetime Spirit Palace's Palace Master, was slightly inferior to the Chaos Emperor. Dandan and the Spacetime Spirit Mouse were equally famous. They were one of the top 10 battle beasts. How could they compare to the Chaos Emperor? Who's bragging? I'm the leader of the top 10 battle beasts. I'm the pinnacle existence in the world. Dandan shouted unhappily after being despised by Lu Ming again. Lu Ming smiled and didn't argue with Dandan anymore. With a wave of his hand, a pile of corpses appeared on Thunder Rhino Supremacy's back. They were the corpses of the Supremacies killed by Lu Ming and the purple golden-robed old man. Lu Ming, how about giving these corpses to me? This is a rare tonic. It can help me recover a bit. Dandan looked at these corpses, especially the Emperor's corpse, and almost drooled. Give them to you? Lu Ming pondered for a moment and said, I have use for the blood essence, but I can give you the rest. The prison-suppressing steel bloodline was only at level 8 of the divine rank and needed blood essence to improve. As for the rest, they were not of much use to Lu Ming. Lu Ming's current cultivation was at the perfected spirit god realm. The next step was to comprehend the embryonic form of the domain and step into the supremacy realm. This step could not be improved by devouring with the 9 dragons bloodline. He needed to rely on his own comprehension. In fact, his cultivation in the future could not be improved by devouring. Comprehension was the most important. Therefore, besides blood essence, the blood of the supremacies, true essence, and so on were of no use to Lu Ming. So, he might as well give them to Dandan. Next, Lu Ming took out some jade bottles and guided them with his true essence. Drops of sparkling and translucent blood essence flew out from the corpses of the supremacies and flew into the jade bottles. There were a total of 7 supremacies, and each of them had 9 drops of blood essence that were stored in different jade bottles. Finally, it was the purple golden-robed old man's blood essence. As an emperor, the purple golden-robed old man's blood essence was like a blood pearl that was filled with boundless energy. As soon as it flew out, it emitted a vast and majestic emperor's aura. This was Lu Ming. If it was an ordinary cultivator below the spirit god realm, they would have been crushed to death by this emperor's aura. Ordinary spirit god realm cultivators would be heavily injured. Only high-level spirit god realm experts and above could approach and even collect the emperor's blood essence. Lu Ming used a jade bottle to put away the emperor's blood essence. As for their storage rings, Lu Ming naturally didn't let them go and had put them away a long time ago. Dandan, you can have them. Lu Ming said. Haha. Dandan roared with laughter, and then it opened its mouth and sucked the corpses of the supremacies and emperors into Dandan's mouth and vanished. I'll keep them and digest them slowly. Dandan grinned, and its eyes narrowed. After that, Dandan's eyes started to size up the sea again. The treasures of heaven and earth in the sea are more than 10 times more abundant than on land. There are all sorts of precious treasures, and I can't miss them all along the way. Dandan muttered. Chirp. Chirp. Bubble chirped in response to Dandan. Haha. All right, we'll join forces and get more treasures of heaven and earth. Chapter 1309. Lu Ming did not care about Dandan and Bubbles. A jade token appeared in his hand and he handed it to Xian Yanqing, saying, "Little Qing, this is the cultivation method of the pure spirit body. Take it and study it first." The cultivation method of the pure spirit body? Is there really such a secret technique in the world? Xian Yanqing's eyes revealed a look of curiosity. He took the jade token and looked at it carefully. After a while, Xian Yanqing revealed a look of amazement. Amazing, really amazing. If I cultivate the pure spirit body, the difficulty of breaking through to the Emperor realm in the future will be greatly reduced. Xian Yanqing sighed. Little Qing, we have to rush back to the divine wilderness continent. It will take some time. Take advantage of this time to comprehend it. Lu Ming said. Okay. Xian Yanqing nodded, then entered the mountain river diagram and began to comprehend the pure spirit body. As for Lu Ming, he continued to sit cross-legged on the back of Thunder Rhino Supreme. He took out a jade bottle and the 9 dragons' bloodline appeared. He opened his mouth and sucked, swallowing the 9 drops of supreme blood essence into his mouth and began to refine them. Lu Ming originally planned to travel by himself, but now, he needed time. Refining the blood essence required time. Cultivating the pure spirit body also required time. He also needed time to comprehend the 5 types of martial skills. According to the records of the Chaos Scripture, only by cultivating the 5 types of martial skills to the highest level could one cultivate the Chaos Concept martial skill, the Chaos Flipping Sky Seal. That was the Chaos Concept martial skill, and its power was terrifying. Lu Ming was naturally looking forward to it. Therefore, he simply asked Thunder Rhino Supreme to hurry up so that Lu Ming could save time and cultivate various martial skills and secret techniques. The 9 dragons swallowed the 9 drops of supreme blood essence and began to refine them rapidly. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, refining 9 drops of supreme blood essence at the same time was naturally no problem. Moreover, the refining speed was much faster than before. In just a few hours, the 9 drops of supreme blood essence were completely refined. The 8 golden chakras of the prison-suppressing steel shone, but it did not advance. Lu Ming continued to take out 9 drops of supreme blood essence and began to refine them. Just like that, Lu Ming wholeheartedly refined the blood essence. After refining 1 supreme blood essence, he took out another. A day later, Lu Ming had already refined the blood essence of 6 sovereigns. His prison-suppressing steel bloodline still hadn't advanced, but Lu Ming had a feeling that it would soon. He took out the blood essence of the 7th supreme being. The 9 dragons opened their mouths, and 9 drops of blood essence flew into their mouths. The majestic blood essence was continuously converted into bloodline power infused with the prison-suppressing steel's bloodline. Wang. After a short while, the bloodline of the prison-suppressing steel vibrated. On the basis of the original 8 golden chakras, a new chakra appeared. The 9th chakra, the prison-suppressing steel bloodline, had finally reached level 9. The hell-suppressing steel's bloodline emitted a dazzling light, and its aura surged. Lu Ming felt that the aura of the prison-suppressing steel bloodline completely surpassed that of the 9 dragons' bloodline. It seems like the prison-suppressing boulder has a shocking background, surpassing the 9 dragons. Lu Ming thought in his heart. Lu Ming felt that if he used the bloodline fusion and transformed into the prison-suppressing steel, its power would definitely be stronger than that of the 9 dragons. The prison-suppressing steel's original body must be an unimaginable treasure. It's a pity that I only have a fragment. If I can get all of them, how powerful would it be? Lu Ming's eyes were burning with anticipation. Since he could find a fragment of the prison-suppressing steel, it meant that the other fragments were still in the world, and there would be a chance to find them. Not long after, the energy of the blood essence was completely refined, and Lu Ming kept the bloodline. Alright, the bloodline has reached level 9. It's already the highest level. Now, it's time to comprehend the pure spirit body. Plop. Plop. At this moment, 2 figures flew out from the sea below and landed on the Thunder Rhino Sovereign's body. It was Dandan and Bubbles. At this moment, the 2 of them were each holding a spiritual herb and gnawing on it. Level 9 Spiritual Herb, Water Spirit Ginseng. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. The spiritual herb that Dandan and Bubbles were gnawing on was a level 9 spiritual herb, Water Spirit Ginseng. The two of them had been rushing into the sea from time to time since a day ago, looking for treasures and eating them happily. Bubbles had mastered the concept of space and time, so he wasn't afraid of losing Thunder Rhino's sovereign. No matter how fast Thunder Rhino's sovereign ran, Bubbles could keep up. Not long after, the level 9 spiritual herb Water Spirit Ginseng was finished by the two of them. Their bodies exuded a rich spiritual herb aura. Obviously, other than the Water Spirit Ginseng, there were many other spiritual herbs that fell into their stomachs. The treasures in the sea were indeed not comparable to those on land. There were more than 10 times more of them. On land, there were human martial artists mining, but in the sea, there were fewer human martial artists. At most, some of the sea monsters would devour them, but there were still many left behind. The two of them had a good time eating. Little guy, let's continue later. Dandan squinted his eyes and looked at Bubbles. Chirp chirp, Bubbles nodded repeatedly. Even the bubbles that he exhaled carried a rich spiritual herb aura. These two guys, Lu Ming smiled and then entered the mountain and river diagram. On the back of Thunder Rhino's sovereign, there was only one mountain and river diagram left. Entering the mountain and river diagram, Lu Ming came to Xie Nianqing's side. Sensing Lu Ming's aura, Xie Nianqing ended his cultivation. Little Qin, how's your comprehension? Lu Ming asked. It's okay, but it's easy to comprehend, but it's not so easy to cultivate. It's even more difficult to cultivate completely. Xie Nianqing said. Indeed. Lu Ming nodded. He had memorized all the cultivation methods of the pure spirit body. Indeed, as Xie Nianqing said, it was not easy to cultivate completely. Cultivating the pure spirit body required a huge amount of raw stones as the foundation because it consumed a huge amount of energy. With a huge amount of energy as the foundation, the body could evolve, transcend the mortal body, and have part of the power of the spirit body. This process couldn't be done overnight. It needed to be done step by step, steadily and surely. The two continued to comprehend. 3 days later, Lu Ming waved his hand and a large pile of raw stones appeared beside him. Lu Ming sat cross-legged, circulating the cultivation method of the pure spirit body. One could see strange lines appearing on his body. There were a total of 108 lines. They seemed to be meridians. This was the special circulation route of the pure spirit body. Bang bang bang, with a shake of his true essence, a large pile of raw stones was shattered and turned into rolling origin chi. Lu Ming opened his mouth and sucked in the rolling origin chi. According to the cultivation method of the pure spirit body, he began to refine his body. Whoosh whoosh, the origin chi of at least 100,000 raw stones was swallowed by Lu Ming. Following the cultivation method of the pure spirit body, it seeped into the depths of Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body had already reached the 9th grade, the limit of the body. However, at this moment, he began to break through the limit and evolve. The 9th grade was the limit of the body, which referred to the limit of the mortal body. Now, he was evolving from a mortal body to a spirit body. As the origin chi continued to seep in and be absorbed, Lu Ming's body began to transform. After a few hours, the origin chi of 100,000 raw stones was completely refined. Lu Ming swallowed another 100,000 raw stones. Chapter 13:10. Phew, Lu Ming let out a long breath and opened his eyes. Crackle. His body moved slightly, and there was a sound like frying beans. His skin was covered with a thick layer of dirt, which were all impurities. What a powerful force. Lu Ming sensed it slightly and found that his body was full of explosive power. This was pure physical power, not the power of true essence. Moreover, Lu Ming felt that his qi and blood were abundant to the extreme. With a thought, his qi and blood would rush out of his body and burn like a furnace, full of powerful vitality. Lu Ming, how is it? Xian Yinxing blinked and asked. About 10%. Lu Ming said. A pure spirit body could not be achieved overnight. It needed to be cultivated step by step to perfection. Now, Lu Ming could be considered to have cultivated a pure spirit body, which was about 10%. Shao Qing, next, you do it. I'll guard you. Lu Ming said. Okay. Xian Yinxing nodded and began to cultivate a pure spirit body. 108 paths appeared on her body. The cultivation process was the same as Lu Ming's. She absorbed the origin qi of the origin stones and tempered her body. A few days later, Xian Yinxing finished her cultivation. Like Lu Ming, she had also reached 10%. Let's go out and clean up. Lu Ming said. His body was covered with a layer of dirt, which was really uncomfortable. The two of them came out of the mountain river diagram and jumped into the sea to clean up. Boom! In the sea, Lu Ming punched out. This punch did not use true essence, nor the power of bloodline. It was purely the power of the physical body. In the sea, there seemed to be an ancient giant beast rioting. In front of Lu Ming's fist, the sea suddenly exploded. The powerful fist force punched a 100-mile-long passage in the sea. What a powerful force! Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Lu Ming felt that the pure physical strength of this punch was enough to kill an 8th level or even 9th level spirit god expert. This was only 10% of the pure spirit body. If it was cultivated to 100%, its power would be unimaginably terrifying. At that time, he could easily kill a supreme being with a single punch. Of course, the higher one's maturity, the harder it would be to cultivate. Boom! Not far away from Lu Ming, Xian Yinxing also struck out with his palms, stirring up the seawater and forming a 1,000-meter-tall wave. As expected of a pure spirit body. A smile hung on Lu Ming's face. With a strong physical body, Lu Ming's battle prowess would naturally be stronger as well. A pure spirit body is not a true spirit body. It's not as miraculous as a true spirit body, but its power is already very shocking. No wonder the Emperor is so powerful. Lu Ming sighed. After washing up, the two returned to Thunder Rhino Supreme's back. Thunder Rhino Supreme continued to travel, while Lu Ming and Xian Yinxing continued to cultivate. Xian Yinxing entered the mountain river diagram and focused on cultivating the pure spirit body. As for Lu Ming, he cultivated the pure spirit body for a period of time every day. He would also take time to cultivate the 5 types of martial skills. As time passed, Lu Ming was slowly improving in all aspects. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. With Thunder Rhino Supreme speed, it would take at least 4 months to fly from the Divine Ruins continent to the Divine Wilderness continent. Now, only 20 days had passed, and there was still a long way to go. Dandan and Bubbles would occasionally rush into the depths of the sea to search for treasures. During this period of time, their mouths were not idle at all. They had swallowed countless spiritual herbs, and their entire bodies were filled with a rich medicinal fragrance. In half a month, Lu Ming's pure spirit body had already reached 30%. Relying on his physical body alone, even a perfected spirit god expert would be injured with a punch. At this time, Lu Ming temporarily stopped cultivating. My current cultivation is at the perfected spirit god level, and my foundation is stable. I can try to break through to the supremacy level. However, to break through to the supremacy level, I need to comprehend the embryonic form of a domain. To comprehend the embryonic form of a domain, I need to spread out the concept runes and merge them with the spirit god. I don't have the slightest clue yet. Let's see if the domain condensing pill can help me. Lu Ming's heart stirred, and a jade bottle appeared in his hand. It was the domain condensing pill that he had obtained when participating in the Yuan Lu's disciple selection. If a perfected spirit god took the domain condensing pill, it would greatly increase the chances of cultivating the embryonic form of a domain and stepping into the supremacy level. Without hesitation, Lu Ming swallowed the domain condensing pill and began to refine it. 2 days later, Lu Ming opened his eyes, revealing a trace of disappointment. It's useless, it's useless. Lu Ming frowned. After refining a domain condensing pill, he found that it had no effect at all. Originally, the domain condensing pill could help Lu Ming open the concept rune and merge it with the spirit god to form the embryonic form of a domain. But previously, Lu Ming had refined the entire domain condensing pill, but the concept rune did not move at all. Legend has it that the stronger the concept, the more difficult it is to cultivate the embryonic form of a domain. Now it seems that it's true. Lu Ming sighed. He knew that it was because the chaotic concept was too strong. A single domain condensing pill did not have much effect. If Lu Ming wanted to cultivate the embryonic form of a chaotic domain, it would be dozens or even hundreds of times more difficult than other concepts. Let's take it slow. Lu Ming shook his head and temporarily gave up the idea of breaking through to the supremacy level. He focused on cultivating the pure spirit body and the concept martial skills. Time passed day by day. 2 months had passed since Lu Ming went out to sea. After 2 months of hard work, the 5 concept martial skills had all reached the peak of the 4th level. Of course, the higher the level, the more difficult it would be to break through. The pure spirit body had been cultivated to 40% and was close to 50%. Lu Ming's strength was also constantly improving. Xian Yanqing's pure spirit body was about the same as Lu Ming's and was close to 50%. It was worth mentioning that Xian Yanqing's cultivation was also increasing due to the continuous breakthroughs of her pure spirit body. She had stepped into the great circle of the spirit god realm. Her cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th level of the spirit god realm because she had been in the primal chaos palace for more than 3 years. Now that she had cultivated the pure spirit body, it was completely natural for her to step into the great circle of the spirit god realm. On this day, Lu Ming was cultivating when he suddenly sensed movement outside. His figure flashed and Lu Ming came out of the mountain river diagram. Nestle, didn't you just steal a few spiritual herbs? How dare you chase after me? You'll remember this. Dandan screamed and shouted. Together with Bubbles, they dashed out of the sea and flew toward Lu Ming. Splash! The seawater surged and the seawater within 1,000 miles was stirred up and kept rolling. Then, a big furry hand reached out from the sea and grabbed at Dandan and Bubbles. The big furry hand was 1,000 miles long. It was covered with long blue hair and emitted an incomparably terrifying aura. Emperor, this was the aura of an emperor. How dare you steal herbs in my territory? Die! A furious roar came from the bottom of the sea. The giant hand sped up and grabbed at Dandan and Bubbles. Chirp chirp, Bubbles spat out a transparent bubble and opened a void passage. It rushed into the void passage with Dandan and appeared on the back of Thunder Rhino Prime in an instant. Chapter 13:11. The Sovereign of the Monster Clan. Thunder Rhino Supreme trembled in fear. First level Sovereign, just nice to test the power of the pure spirit body. Lu Ming revealed a trace of fighting spirit. He soared into the sky and dashed toward the 1,000-mile-long giant hand. An ant dares to resist. You're courting death. At the bottom of the sea, a furious roar sounded again, and the giant hand grabbed at Lu Ming. Who's the ant? Lu Ming shouted coldly, and the 9 dragon forces in his body burst out. The pure spirit body circulated, filling Lu Ming with infinite power. Boom! Lu Ming punched out and performed the hell-suppressing heaven skill. The fist collided with the 1,000-mile giant hand. With a world-shaking boom, the 1,000-mile-long giant hand emitted boundless blue light, and then it suddenly exploded in the air, disintegrating into pieces. Deep in the sea, there was an incredible roar. The sea water surged, and a blue figure rushed out of the sea. It was an ape, more than 3 meters tall, covered with blue hair, and emitting a terrifying murderous aura. It stared at Lu Ming fiercely and was in disbelief. It seemed that it couldn't believe that Lu Ming could defeat the giant hand with a punch. How is it possible that you're just a perfect spirit god? After the ape scanned Lu Ming's cultivation, it was even more incredulous. A divine ape of sea. Interesting. It's a good choice to take it as a fighter. Lu Ming sized up the ape and revealed an interested expression. The divine ape of sea was a kind of divine beast. Nonetheless, it seemed that the sea-subduing divine ape was not a pure-blooded one before it broke through to become a ruler. Instead, it transformed into a sea-subduing divine ape after becoming a ruler. There was still a huge difference between it and a pure-blooded divine beast. What did you say? You want to take me as a fighter? You're just an ant. You're courting death. Upon hearing Lu Ming's words, the sea divine ape flew into a rage. It took a step forward and the endless seawater in the sea seemed to obey the command of the sea divine ape. The endless seawater transformed into a giant rod that was thousands of miles long. The sea divine ape held the rod in its hands and smashed it toward Lu Ming. If you don't accept it, then I'll beat you until you do. Lu Ming smiled faintly as his third bloodline appeared. Lu Ming borrowed a wisp of the third bloodline's power to increase his strength. As for bloodline fusion and the concept of primal chaos, Lu Ming didn't plan to use them yet. Boom! Lu Ming unleashed the hell-suppressing heaven art and punched out. Dong! Heaven and earth shook, and the seawater roiled, creating thousands of waves. The giant rod that was condensed from seawater was blasted apart by Lu Ming's punch. Whoosh! Lu Ming executed the wind essence art. His figure was like a phantom as he pounced towards the sea-subduing divine ape with extreme speed. The sea-subduing divine ape's expression changed drastically as it let out an angry roar. Its entire body emitted a blue light as it charged towards Lu Ming. Boom! Boom! After a few consecutive moves, the sea-subduing divine ape let out a miserable cry as it was sent flying for thousands of miles. It spat out a mouthful of blood. This sea-subduing divine ape's combat strength wasn't even as strong as the purple golden-robed old man, let alone the emperor's spiritual weapon that the purple golden-robed old man controlled. On the other hand, Lu Ming had cultivated a pure spirit body and his combat abilities were even stronger. He did not need to perform bloodline integration to deal with the sea-subduing divine ape, much less cast the chaos concept. He could easily suppress the sea-subduing divine ape. How is this possible? How can he be so strong? The sea-subduing divine ape's heart was filled with question marks as it was filled with disbelief. It really couldn't figure out how a mere perfected spiritual god martial artist could have such terrifying combat strength. Run! Without hesitation, the sea-subduing divine ape turned around and ran. It was about to rush into the sea. You can't run away. Lu Ming executed the wind essence art. His figure flashed as he approached the sea-subduing divine ape and punched out. This punch was the fusion of 5 concepts into one. The terrifying power made the sea-subduing divine ape feel cold all over. It felt that it couldn't escape. It roared and tried its best to resist. Unfortunately, it couldn't resist Lu Ming's punch at all. It was sent flying thousands of miles away and its body almost exploded. It spat out large mouthfuls of blood and its aura was weak. It was seriously injured in one move. Submit to me, or die. Lu Ming stepped out and crossed thousands of miles to arrive in front of the sea-subduing divine ape. He looked at it coldly. In particular, Lu Ming borrowed the power of the third bloodline. The cold and merciless killing intent made the sea-subduing divine ape feel cold all over. I surrender, I surrender. In the end, the sea-subduing divine ape lowered its head helplessly. I have to engrave a restriction on your body. Otherwise, I won't be at ease. Dandan, it's your turn. Lu Ming said. Okay. Dandan flew towards the sea-subduing divine ape. The sea-subduing divine ape was helpless. Now that its life was in the hands of Lu Ming, it could only allow Dandan to engrave a restriction on it. Lu Ming, this sea-subduing divine ape's mansion is deep in the sea. There are many treasures there. Dandan's eyes lit up. Chirp chirp, Bubble also waved its little paws excitedly. There was a big bubble and a small bubble at the tip of its nose. Dandan has led Bubble astray. Lu Ming was speechless. Plop. Plop. Dandan and Bubble rushed into the sea impatiently. The sea-subduing divine ape was helpless. Now that it had submitted to Lu Ming, its mansion and treasures would definitely be lost. Lead the way. I'll go take a look too. Lu Ming instructed the sea-subduing divine ape. Yes. The sea-subduing divine ape bowed and replied. Then, Lu Ming and the sea-subduing divine ape entered the sea together. Deep in the sea, there was a divine mountain with countless spiritual herbs growing on it. This was the mansion of the sea-subduing divine ape. There were also some powerful sea beasts on the divine mountain, but they were all killed by Dandan and Bubble. The two of them were desperately picking spiritual herbs and stuffing them into their mouths. This is 100,000-year-old wine. Suddenly, Dandan's laughter was heard. Lu Ming and the sea-subduing divine ape stepped into the divine mountain. At the top of the divine mountain, they saw a small pool. The pool was filled with blue crystal clear liquid. The liquid exuded an extremely rich aura of life. At this moment, Dandan and Bubble were rolling in the pool and gulping down the liquid. Hiss, at the side, the sea-subduing divine ape was heartbroken when it saw this scene. Its liver, lungs, and body were in pain. Even it couldn't bear to use this pool of liquid. But now, Dandan and Bubble were gulping it down. Every mouthful was like biting its flesh. If Lu Ming wasn't here, it would have gone crazy. How unlucky. The sea-subduing divine ape wailed in its heart, lamenting its bad luck to meet Lu Ming. It would lose its freedom in the future, and the wealth that it had accumulated for a lifetime would all be wasted by Dandan and Bubble. You too, leave some for me. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He took out a big jade bottle, activated his true yuan, and absorbed the liquid into the jade bottle. After filling the bottle to the brim, Lu Ming stopped. It wasn't that Lu Ming was satisfied, but that the liquid in the pool was gone. All of it had gone into Dandan and Bubble's stomach. What a waste. Lu Ming's heart ached. Chapter 13:12. But now, most of it had been swallowed up by Dandan and Bubble. Hee, the two fellows had round bellies and even burped a few times. Especially Bubble, its eyes were blurry and its entire body was glowing as if it was drunk. Sure enough, Bubble climbed onto Lu Ming's shoulder and lay on Lu Ming's shoulder, snoring loudly. The milky white light on its body grew denser and denser. Lu Ming, I also want to sleep and digest the energy in my body. Dandan's eyes were also blurry as it climbed onto Lu Ming's other shoulder. Lu Ming, wait for me. When I wake up again, I'll definitely step into the Monarch realm. Dandan continued to mutter, its voice growing softer and softer. These two fellows had consumed too many spiritual herbs during this period of time. Coupled with the pool of nectar, it was finally time for them to evolve. As it muttered, Dandan also fell asleep on Lu Ming's shoulder. Lu Ming put Dandan and Bubble into the mountain and river diagram, then asked the divine ape to lead the way and harvest the remaining spiritual herbs nearby. Since the divine ape was going to leave with him, it would be a waste to leave these spiritual herbs here. They flew out of the sea. Little ape, take me with you. This map is for you. Take me to the divine wilderness continent. Lu Ming said to the divine ape. The divine ape almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Little ape? Is this the name you gave me? But under the power of others, the divine ape had no choice but to accept this name. Lu Ming asked Thunder Rhino Supreme to return to the mountain and river diagram to rest while the divine ape carried Lu Ming on the way. The divine ape was an emperor, and its speed was several times faster than Thunder Rhino Supreme. It would have taken more than 2 months to travel, but the divine ape only used half a month to cross it. In front of them, a huge continent was in sight. They had arrived at the divine wilderness continent. After half a month of cultivation, Lu Ming's pure spirit body had finally reached 50%. At this point, Lu Ming let the sea-subduing divine ape enter the mountain and river diagram and used the thunder rhino supreme instead. The sea-subduing divine ape was, after all, an emperor. Riding it into the divine wilderness continent was too ostentatious and would cause a commotion. Honorable Thunder Rhino was still a bit better. Rumble. Autarch Thunder Rhino stepped into the void, carrying Lu Ming towards the divine wilderness continent. I'm finally back. Xian Yanqing stood beside Lu Ming and whispered. There was a complicated look in his eyes. Now that she was back, it was time to settle the grudge between her and the ancient Saint Dynasty Xia family. Supreme Thunder Rhino stepped into the void and flew into the divine wilderness continent. Endless mountains and rivers flashed beneath his feet. This was the northern plains of the divine wilderness continent. Lu Ming guided the Thunder Rhino Prime towards the 100 Beast tribe. Xiao Wan and the others should be guarding the 100 Beast tribe. Before long, they were close to the 100 Beast tribe. Something's not right. Lu Ming frowned. Along the way, he found that something was wrong. The atmosphere was not right. Many large places and cities were heavily guarded and heavily guarded. There was a feeling that a storm was about to come. Who's there? Stop. Oh no, it's a Supreme Being expert. Suddenly, a few loud roars were heard. A group of armored soldiers rushed out from a mountain in front of them and blocked in front of Lu Ming and the others. When they sensed the aura of Supreme Thunder Rhino, their faces changed drastically. Quickly spread the news that an unknown Supreme Being is attacking. One of the armored soldiers shouted. No, that's Marshal Lu. Marshal Lu Ming, at this moment, someone exclaimed. What? The other soldiers also looked at the back of Supreme Thunder Rhino. Just now, they were shocked by the aura of Supreme Thunder Rhino and did not pay attention to the back of Supreme Thunder Rhino. Now that they saw it, they were all stunned. It's really Marshal Lu. How is that possible? Didn't the experts of the continent of Divine Ruin spread the news that Marshal Lu died in the battle? Yeah, why is he still alive? But I've seen Marshal Lu before. It can't be wrong. I've seen him too. This is Marshal Lu. Hundreds of armored soldiers were in an uproar as they looked at Lu Ming in bewilderment. I died in the continent of Divine Ruins? What's going on? Lu Ming frowned and felt that something was wrong. Whoosh! Lu Ming took a step forward and appeared in front of the armored soldiers. The hundreds of armored soldiers were shocked and couldn't help but retreat. I'm Lu Ming. What are you afraid of? What's going on? Lu Ming said. Are you really Marshal Lu? Some of the armored soldiers were still bewildered. Nonsense, quickly spread the news and asked the chaotic Sky Emperor to come. Lu Ming said. These were just ordinary soldiers and didn't know much. They wouldn't be able to explain it clearly. It was better to ask Xiao Wan directly. Okay, we'll spread the news right away. An armored soldier who looked like a leader quickly took out a voice transmission jade talisman and sent out the news. Less than 10 breaths later. Hiss. Hiss. The space fluctuated and cracks appeared. One by one, figures walked out of the cracks. Each of them exuded a powerful aura. Xiao Wan. Lu Ming saw at a glance that the leader was Xiao Wan. In addition, Lu Ming also saw the Emperor Mo Yi from the Myriad Demons Abyss, the Emperor Chu Luo from the Demon God Valley, the Emperor Barbarian Emperor from the 100 Beast Tribe, and the Emperor Yuexin Martial Emperor from the Floating Mountain. Why is Moonheart Martial Emperor here? A trace of doubt flashed in Lu Ming's heart. Brother Yen. Lu Ming also saw Yen Kuangtu and some other Supreme Being experts. As soon as everyone appeared, their eyes fell on Lu Ming. Lu Ming, it's really Lu Ming. Lu Ming is not dead. Voices came out from the mouths of the crowd, full of surprise and astonishment. Lu Ming, I knew you would be fine. Seeing Lu Ming, Yen Kuangtu was pleasantly surprised and rushed toward Lu Ming. Moo! Lei Shi Supreme roared, his body covered in thunder and lightning, staring at Yan Kuangtu cautiously. Yan Kuangtu could not help but stop. Lei Shi, they're on our side, back off. Lu Ming ordered Lei Shi Supreme. Lei Shi Supreme immediately became obedient, withdrew his aura and turned into a burly man, standing behind Lu Ming. Supreme Being. This is a Supreme Being. Chu Luo, Barbarian Emperor, and the others glanced at Lei Shi Supreme in surprise. A Supreme Being seemed to be very obedient in front of Lu Ming. Lu Ming actually had the ability to subdue a Supreme Being and make a Supreme Being so obedient, which was rare. Ha ha ha, Lu Ming, I knew you would be fine. Yan Kuangtu burst out laughing as he came to Lu Ming's side and patted Lu Ming's shoulder. He then picked up the wine gourd and took a big gulp. Brother Yan, how are you? Lu Ming smiled. Yan Kuangtu's concern could not be concealed, as it was his true feelings, causing Lu Ming's heart to feel warm. Lu Ming. At that instant, Xiao Wan, Chu Luo, and the others stepped forward and greeted Lu Ming. Lu Ming greets the seniors. Chapter 13:13. Lu Ming, the Floating Mountains sect has moved to the 100 Beast tribe. Wuxia Martial Emperor was beautiful, but she let out a sigh filled with loneliness. What happened? Also, why did they say that I died in the Godly Ruins continent? Lu Ming asked, full of doubts. Lu Ming, it's a long story. Let's return to the 100 Beast tribe and I'll tell you in detail. Xiao Wan said. All right. Lu Ming nodded and the group headed toward the 100 Beast tribe. After arriving at the 100 Beast tribe, Lu Ming felt that the atmosphere was not right. The 100 Beast tribe was filled with various formations. Every corner was guarded by experts and many armored soldiers patrolling the area. The atmosphere was tense, as if a great battle was about to break out. When Lu Ming left the Divine Wilderness continent, although the Divine Wilderness continent was also embroiled in a war and Northern Plains had just experienced a war, the atmosphere back then was not as solemn as it was now. It felt like a great battle of life and death was about to break out at any moment. Lu Ming was even more curious, but he could only suppress his doubts and ask them later. The news of Lu Ming's return spread rapidly in the 100 Beast tribe, causing an uproar. Lu Ming and the others arrived at a meeting hall in the 100 Beast tribe. Everyone sat on two sides of the hall. There were 2 seats at the front, and Xiao Wan sat on one of them. Lu Ming, please. Xiao Wan raised his hand and signaled Lu Ming to take a seat. Lu Ming did not stand on ceremony and sat down beside Xiao Wan. However, he did not notice the displeasure in the eyes of Chu Luo, Mo Yi, and the other martial emperors. After everyone sat down, more people entered the hall. They were all higher-ups, and the weakest among them was a Martial Highness realm expert. Soon, there were more than 10 people in the hall. Senior Xia, why did the armored soldiers say that I died in the Godly Ruins continent when I returned? Lu Ming could not help but ask. Lu Ming, not long ago, the sea-crossing flying ship that brought you to the Godly Ruins mainland returned. The experts of the divine sect in the Godly Ruins mainland said that you, Lu Ming, offended the sky pride of the heavenly god sect in the Godly Ruins mainland. You were killed by the sky pride of the heavenly god sect. Xiao Wan said. Lu Ming frowned. The experts from the Holy Gate were obviously the experts from the Southern God Palace who had sent Long Chen and the Underworld Child back. But why would the people from the Southern God Palace say that? They said he was killed. Could it be that the people from Southern God Palace were experts from the Mu clan? Lu Ming's heart stirred. When Long Chen, Underworld Child, Unscrupulous Monk, and the others left for the Divine Desolate Continent, it was probably when Lu Ming's group was being chased by the Mu family's patriarch. Therefore, the people from the Southern Divine Palace believed that Lu Ming was dead for sure. When they arrived at the Divine Desolate Continent, they said that Lu Ming had already been killed. Lu Ming guessed. What about Long Chen, Underworld Child, and the Western Desert Holy Monk? No one came out to say anything? Lu Ming asked. No. Moreover, only 3 of them came back. They are Underworld Child and the 2 holy monks from the Western Desert. Long Chen is nowhere to be seen. When the 3 of them came back, they spread the news that they were in seclusion and did not say a word to the outside world. Xiao Wan said. Long Chen did not come back. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. Could it be that Long Chen was also assassinated like them? Moreover, from the looks of it, Underworld Child and the others must have been warned by the Southern Divine Palace and did not say a word. Therefore, the news that Lu Ming had been recruited as a disciple by the Divine Dragon Valley of the Yuanlu continent was naturally kept a secret. Lu Ming, did you really offend the Sky Pride of the Heavenly Divinity sect of the Yuanlu continent? At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Lu Ming looked in the direction of the voice. It was Chu Luo. He was currently staring at Lu Ming. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows slightly. In the past, Chu Luo had always addressed him as General Lu. However, he was now directly addressing Lu Ming by his name. Moreover, there was a hint of questioning in his tone. Everyone's gaze also fell upon Lu Ming. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. With his intelligence, he naturally knew what was going on. In the past, they had taken a fancy to Lu Ming's talent and thought that Lu Ming could join the Yuanlu continent's great sects and help them in the future. However, the people from the Southern Divine Palace had come and said that Lu Ming had offended the Sky Pride of the Yuanlu continent's great sects and had been killed by them. Although Lu Ming was still alive, he could not join the Yuanlu continent's great sects since he had offended the Sky Pride of the Yuanlu continent's great sects. Since he could not join the Yuanlu continent's great sects and had offended the Sky Pride of the Yuanlu continent's great sects, their attitude towards Lu Ming naturally changed. That's right. I have offended the Sky Pride of the Divine Dragon sect. Lu Ming answered truthfully. Lu Ming, it's not that I want to criticize you. Although you have some talent, you should know your limits and know your limits. Your talent is not bad in the Divine Wilderness continent, but it's nothing in the Yuanlu continent. How dare you offend the Sky Pride of the Yuanlu continent's great sects? It's fine if you offend them, but don't drag us down with you. Chu Luo spoke coldly. Lu Ming, I want to know if the people of the Yuanlu continent's great sects know about your return? Mo Yi spoke as well. Chu Luo, Mo Yi, that's enough. Lu Ming is my ally. At the side, Xiao Wan frowned and berated them. Demon ancestor, but Chu Luo still wanted to say something. I said that's enough. Xiao Wan's gaze turned cold. Chu Luo shut his mouth and did not dare to say anything else. However, his gaze towards Lu Ming was filled with faint disdain. After failing to join the Yuanlu continent's great sects, Lu Ming was just a junior, a martial artist at the spiritual god realm. He looked down on Lu Ming from the bottom of his heart. Lu Ming smiled slightly and did not explain. He had defeated the Sky Pride of the Celestial Divinity sect and obtained first place in the test. He had even joined another Yuanlu continent's great sects, the Divine Dragon Valley. Senior Xia, what's the current situation in the Divine Wilderness continent? Why do I feel that the 100 Beast tribe is heavily guarded? Moreover, all the seniors are gathered there? Lu Ming asked another question in his heart. In the past, many experts were guarding different places in the northern plains. However, they seem to be gathered at the 100 Beast tribe now. Lu Ming, the current situation in the Divine Wilderness continent has changed greatly. Xiao Wan frowned and said when that was mentioned. The situation has changed greatly? Because of what? Lu Ming asked. Because of D.E. Xiao Wan said. D.E.? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. D.E. was so powerful that he could change the situation in the Divine Wilderness continent? Yes, because of D.E. When you left, the Heavenly King token was also taken away by the experts of the Divine Sect. However, the ancient Saint Dynasty and the Divine Army have a deep grudge against each other. It's difficult for them to stop fighting. The other overlords are also fighting with each other. The central continent is still in chaos, but the situation is still good. However, a few months ago, De suddenly attacked. Xiao Wan explained in detail what had happened during this period of time, especially about Martial Emperor De. It turned out that everyone had been deceived by Martial Emperor De for so many years. Not only was Martial Emperor De powerful, but he was also secretly developing his forces. Chapter 13-14. The sovereigns of the southern underworld had been subdued by Martial Emperor De at some point in time. The entire southern underworld was under Martial Emperor De's control. The Eastern Wasteland Heavenly Corpse sect was also created by one of the sovereigns of the southern underworld. The reason why they kept fighting with the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace was to attract attention so that the other overlords would not care too much about the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. This way, De could keep increasing his strength in secret. When the time was right, he could start the war. A few months ago, Martial Emperor De finally could not hold back anymore. He led the southern underworld's army to attack the central continent. In a short period of time, many overlord forces were destroyed by Martial Emperor De. Martial Emperor De's strength increased greatly. He even sent out experts to help the ancient Saint Dynasty's Xia clan deal with the Heaven Suppression Army. After a shocking battle, the Heaven Suppression Army suffered great losses and retreated to the border of the northern plains. They joined forces with Xiao Wan to deal with the strong enemy. Therefore, during this period of time, the atmosphere was unprecedentedly tense. All the experts of the northern plains gathered at the 100 Beast tribe to deal with the attack of the strong enemy at any time. After hearing this, Lu Ming was shocked. At the same time, he understood some things. He understood why the Eastern Wasteland Heavenly Corpse sect could rise in such a short period of time and compete with the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. It was all under Martial Emperor De's arrangement. Of course, their strength increased quickly. When they were fighting for the Heavenly King's token, the Eastern Wasteland and the Southern Underworld did not make any moves. At that time, Lu Ming and the others found it strange. Now, it made sense. The Eastern Wasteland and the Southern Underworld were basically under Martial Emperor De's control. At that time, the time was not right. If Martial Emperor De did not give the order, the Eastern Wasteland and the Southern Underworld would not make a move. Even if De and the experts of the Southern Underworld joined forces, they should not be that strong. If the many overlord forces of the Central Continent joined forces, they would have many sovereigns. How could they be defeated by De? Although De is strong, the Heaven Suppression Army has a deep foundation. There might be experts who could contend with him. How could he be defeated so easily? Lu Ming asked the question in his heart. Although De's combat ability was strong, even if Nanming was included, there wouldn't be too many sovereigns. There wouldn't be more than 7. Some of the more powerful overlord forces in the Central Continent would have 2 sovereigns, or even more. If several overlord forces joined forces, they wouldn't be destroyed so easily. It's because De's helpers have arrived. De's cultivation is at the peak of the LV2 martial royal realm, and he has a royal spiritual weapon. Most importantly, 2 terrifying experts have appeared beside De. They are both at the peak of the LV2 martial royal realm, and they also have royal spiritual weapons. Xiao Wan said with a grave expression. What? Lu Ming was shocked. There were 2 experts at the peak of the second-level martial emperor realm beside De. The peak of LV2 martial royal realm was definitely the pinnacle of existence in the divine wilderness continent. Before Lu Ming went to the divine ruins continent, there were only Xiao Wan and De who were at the peak of LV2 martial royal realm. But now, how could there be 2 experts at the peak of the second LV of the martial royal realm beside De? What was even more shocking was that the 2 of them were even in control of emperor-level spirit weapons. Emperor-level spirit weapons were very rare, and it was difficult for most emperors to own one. At the same time, Lu Ming also understood the current situation in the divine wilderness continent. Although there were not many emperors around De, their high-level battle strength was too strong. De himself and the two experts at the peak of LV2 Martial Royal Realm could absolutely sweep away the overlords of the divine wilderness continent. No one could defeat them. No wonder the atmosphere in the northern plains was so solemn and tense. In the northern plains, only Xiao Wan was at the peak of LV2 Martial Royal Realm. Now, De's army is attacking the few overlord forces in the central continent. In recent days, I heard that they are besieging the World Academy. The World Academy is in danger. Xiao Wan said. The World Academy. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly brightened, emitting a strong fighting desire. Lu Ming, what do you think? Xiao Wan asked. Rescue the World Academy. Lu Ming said decisively. Rescue? Lu Ming, how can we rescue them? Now that DE is powerful and has many experts, we can't even protect ourselves. How can we rescue them? Chu Luo sneered, his tone full of disdain. The rest of the people shook their heads slightly, obviously agreeing with Chu Luo. Below, Yan Kuangtu wanted to say something several times, but stopped. He seemed to have something to say to Lu Ming, but in the end, he held back. Without the lips, the teeth will feel cold. I'm sure everyone understands that World Academy is not weak. If it is attacked by DE, it will only increase DE's strength. If it is saved by us and joins hands with us, it will increase our strength. Only then will we be able to contend against DE. Lu Ming said. Although it's the truth, truth is truth. In fact, our strength is not enough. Only by defending with all our strength can we have a chance of survival. If we rescue them and lead DE to attack in advance, Lu Ming, will you take responsibility? Chu Luo sneered. I'll take responsibility. Lu Ming said. You'll take responsibility? Ridiculous. Lu Ming, to put it bluntly, what qualifications do you have to take responsibility? Although you have allied with the demon ancestor, in this world, strength is everything. If you don't have strength, you'd better behave. Chu Luo laughed heartily. This sentence was clearly belittling Lu Ming. Xiao Wan frowned, thinking that Chu Luo had gone too far. However, he did not agree to rescue the World Academy now, so he pondered for a moment and did not speak. Lu Ming, I can tell you clearly that if you want to rescue the World Academy, you have to do it yourself. We won't do anything, in case DE attacks in advance. Chu Luo said. I'll go with Lu Ming. Yan Kuangtu stepped out. I'll go with Lu Ming too. I'll go too. Then, two voices sounded in succession. They were the Barbarian Emperor of the 100 Beast Tribe and Wuxia Martial Emperor of the Floating Mountain. No, you're not allowed to go either. You're in the same boat as us now. If you go, you'll weaken our strength and it'll also lead to DE's attack in advance. Chu Luo said loudly. You, Yan Kuangtu, the Barbarian Emperor and the others looked pale. You don't have to go. I alone am enough to rescue the World Academy. Lu Ming's voice sounded abruptly. Everyone was stunned. Lu Ming alone? Rescue the World Academy? How was that possible? Lu Ming, it seems that your judgment has changed after you went to the continent of God's ruins. You're becoming more and more ignorant. It's no wonder that you even dared to offend the elites of Yuanlu's major sects. Chu Luo sneered. Chu Luo felt uncomfortable when he thought of how he had obeyed Lu Ming's orders in the past. At that time, he thought that Lu Ming could join Yuanlu's sect and he saw the future of Lu Ming. That was why he obeyed Xiao Wan and obeyed Lu Ming. He was an emperor, but he obeyed a young man in his 20s. He had always felt uncomfortable. Chapter 13-15. At this moment, Lu Ming sneered. Since he returned, Chu Luo had been mocking and ridiculing him non-stop, which had already made Lu Ming a little unhappy. Lu Ming looked coldly at Chu Luo and said, "Which eye of yours saw me overestimating myself? Also, do you think you're great just because you're an emperor? In my eyes, you're not worth mentioning. What did you say? Chu Luo was furious and suddenly stood up from his seat. The might of an emperor erupted from his body, and a terrifying pressure pressed down on Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming was as calm as a breeze, sitting there motionlessly. Chu Luo, sit down. Xiao Wan berated. Demon ancestor, you've seen it too. This person is arrogant and doesn't even take an emperor seriously. I used to think that he was a top figure, but now it seems that I was completely wrong about him. Chu Luo said. I'm not looking down on an emperor, I'm looking down on you. Lu Ming sneered. You're looking down on me? Good, good, good. I'd like to see how much you've improved after your trip to the continent of divine ruins. How dare you speak so arrogantly? Today, I'll teach you a good lesson on behalf of the demon ancestor. Chu Luo was furious. He stepped out of his seat and pressed towards Lu Ming. The aura on his body grew stronger and stronger. Some of the supremes on the side had a drastic change in expression and felt that it was difficult to breathe. If you want to fight, then let's fight outside. Lu Ming stood up and took a step out. In a flash, he left the hall and arrived in the sky outside the hall. Many people were stunned. What did Lu Ming say? He wanted to fight Chu Luo? Did he really dare to fight Chu Luo? Many people thought that they had heard wrongly. Although Lu Ming had restrained his aura, they could still sense that Lu Ming was only at the spirit god realm. A young man at the spirit god realm actually wanted to fight an emperor? Lu Ming was either crazy or extremely arrogant. Ha ha ha, you've seen it too. This kid is arrogant and ignorant. I'll teach him a lesson. Chu Luo laughed angrily, his eyes filled with anger. Lu Ming actually dared to challenge him. A spiritual deity challenging an emperor was a great insult to him. He had to teach Lu Ming a lesson. He didn't even consider that all of this was the result of him constantly provoking Lu Ming. With a flicker, Chu Luo left the hall and arrived in the air. Let's go out and take a look. Whoosh. 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 The experts in the main hall rushed out of the main hall and stood in the void. Lu Ming, Yan Kuangtu revealed a worried look and also rushed out of the main hall. Lu Ming. A strange look flashed across Xiao Wan's eyes. Based on his understanding of Lu Ming was not an arrogant person. On the contrary, Lu Ming never fought someone he was not confident about. Could Lu Ming really create a miracle and contend against a ruler? Xiao Wan's eyes were filled with anticipation as he walked out of the hall. Look, who's that? That's the Chu Luo Demon Emperor, and the other person is Lu Ming, General Lu. What's going on? It looks like the Chu Luo Demon Emperor is going to fight with General Lu. No way, the Chu Luo Demon Emperor is a ruler. How could General Lu be a match for him? With so many experts gathered in the sky, their auras were mighty and the commotion was huge. Many people in the 100 Beast tribe sensed the commotion and looked over. Some of them were in disbelief. High up in the sky. Lu Ming, I admit that although you are talented, you are too arrogant and condescending. Today, I will teach you a lesson to wake you up and let you know who you are. Chu Luo's voice was heard as he took a step forward. With every step he took, heaven and earth seemed to resonate with him and trembled. The powerful aura of a martial emperor burst out and spread between heaven and earth, causing many people to tremble and break out in cold sweat. Some of the weaker cultivators knelt down as if they were facing the heavenly Tao and could not resist. However, Lu Ming stood quietly in the void. His body did not move and he did not even lift his eyelids. This world is much bigger than you think. The divine region is just a small part of it. In the entire Yuan realm, a rank 1 martial emperor is just a low-level existence. As a rank 1 martial emperor, you act high and mighty. Your achievements will stop here. A calm and indifferent voice came from Lu Ming's mouth. Shut up, my achievements will not be judged by you. Lu Ming's words infuriated Chu Luo. With a shout, Chu Luo was the first to move. He took a step forward and clenched his claws in the air. A pitch-black claw condensed from demonic aura grabbed at Lu Ming. Even a prime would be seriously injured by this claw. However, Lu Ming did not move in the face of this claw. It was as if he did not see it and allowed the giant claw to grab him. Why isn't Lu Ming fighting back? Could it be that he is frightened or imprisoned? The power of an emperor is too terrifying. It can imprison heaven and earth. Lu Ming probably wants to fight back, but he can't move his body. Seeing this scene, many people guessed. Lu Ming, dodge. Yan Kuangtu became anxious. However, Lu Ming still did not move. A mere spiritual god ant dares to preach to me. I will teach him a lesson. As long as I don't kill him and break a few of his bones, I think the demon ancestor will not blame me. Chu Luo sneered, and the demonic qi became stronger. In an instant, the giant claw was about to grab Lu Ming's head. At this moment, Lu Ming finally moved. Lu Ming's movement was very simple. He threw a simple punch. Boom! The space exploded like tofu. The claw that Chu Luo condensed also exploded under Lu Ming's punch, disappearing into nothingness. Everyone's pupils suddenly widened in shock. Lu Ming's seemingly casual punch defeated the claw condensed from Chu Luo's demonic qi. Although Chu Luo didn't use his true ability at all, it could still injure a supreme being. However, it was defeated so easily by Lu Ming. How was this possible? Lu Ming's combat strength had already reached such a level. It was too shocking. What a powerful punch. Its power is boundless, especially the power of his physical body. It's extremely shocking. Why do I feel like it's a spiritual body erupting? The barbaric emperor spoke with deep surprise in his eyes. I have the same feeling too. The other emperors also spoke. Lu Ming. Xiao Wan's eyes also lit up. Yan Kuangtu's eyes were even brighter. You have some ability. Take another move of mine. Chu Luo roared. He felt humiliated after being blocked by Lu Ming, and the anger in his heart burned even more. Buzz. The demonic domain spread out from his body and enveloped Lu Ming. At the same time, the muscles all over his body swelled, and he suddenly threw a punch. This punch contained the power of the domain and the power of his spiritual body. Its power was 10 times stronger than the previous move. Chu Luo had already used his true strength and displayed the power of an emperor. Roar! Roar! Chapter 13-16. Swoosh! Lu Ming performed the wind origin skill. With a tremble of his body, he rushed toward Chu Luo and threw out a punch. The two of them each threw out a punch, which collided in the air and bombarded each other. Boom! A deafening sound was heard. Then, under everyone's shocked and incredulous gazes, Chu Luo's domain was shattered by Lu Ming's punch. Crack! The sound of bones breaking resounded throughout the place. Chu Luo screamed. His entire arm was deformed. His body shook violently and was sent flying like a cannonball. Lu Ming, on the other hand, did not move at all. Oh my God, everyone looked at this scene with their mouths agape. They were completely stunned and tongue-tied. Their eyes were full of disbelief. Chu Luo, a demon emperor, was sent flying by Lu Ming's punch and his hand bones were broken. How was this possible? This was simply like a fantasy story, something that was simply impossible to happen. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed that such a thing had happened. In fact, even if they saw it with their own eyes, many people would not dare to believe it and thought that they were dreaming. Boom! Many powerhouses could not control the excitement in their hearts and their bodies erupted with strong auras. Even Xiao Wan was the same. Monster, he's really a monster. It seems that the people of the Divine Gate are not telling the truth. They must be hiding something. Xiao Wan muttered to himself, revealing an extremely excited expression. Lu Ming. Yan Kuangtu also muttered softly, trembling with excitement. One punch had injured an emperor. What did this mean? It meant that Lu Ming's combat strength had at least reached the level of an emperor. With such little combat strength, you still act high and mighty. Who gave you the confidence? Lu Ming stepped in the void and rushed toward Chu Luo at an extremely fast speed, throwing out another punch. This punch contained Lu Ming's true origin, the power of the 9 dragon forces, the power of the 3rd bloodline, and of course, the power of a pure spirit body that had reached 50%. The terrifying power, coupled with the hell-suppressing heaven skill, was extremely powerful. Chu Luo roared wildly. A battle saber appeared in his hand and he slashed out fiercely. This attack was the eruption of Chu Luo's strongest combat strength. Boom! The dazzling saber gleam collapsed under Lu Ming's iron fist. The terrifying fist force bombarded Chu Luo's combat saber, causing Chu Luo's body to tremble violently. He retreated violently and spurted blood from his mouth. 9 dragons stomping the heavens. Activating the wind origin art, Lu Ming appeared above Chu Luo's head. His hands rapidly formed hand seals, and 4 sealing gates appeared around Chu Luo. A powerful sealing force locked Chu Luo in the void. During this time, Lu Ming didn't give up on cultivating the 9 seals. Every day, he would take some time to comprehend it. After several months of bitter cultivation, the 9 seals of the Divine Gate had taken another step forward. He could condense 4 sealing doors at once, and their power was even stronger. Then, Lu Ming executed the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps, taking 8 consecutive steps. Boom! 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 Chu Luo's body shook violently. With every step he took, he spat out blood. In the end, he smashed into the ground like a meteor. Sizzle! Sizzle! Lu Ming waved his hand and activated the Thunder Origin art. A lightning whip condensed from lightning flashed out and wrapped around Chu Luo's body, pulling him in front of Lu Ming. At this moment, Chu Luo's face was pale. Half of his body had exploded, and blood kept flowing out of his mouth. Chu Luo was an emperor. If he were an ordinary martial artist, he wouldn't have survived. An emperor had a spiritual body, so he could recover with some time. At this moment, Chu Luo looked at Lu Ming with eyes full of fear and disbelief. There was a deathly silence at the scene. Chu Luo had lost. Chu Luo had been thoroughly defeated. Facing Lu Ming, Chu Luo was like a baby who couldn't withstand a single blow. Chu Luo was an emperor, and his cultivation had reached the late 1st level of the martial emperor realm. He wasn't weak among martial emperors, but he couldn't fight back against Lu Ming. Was he still human? Was Lu Ming still human? The cultivation level that Lu Ming displayed was only at the primordial god realm. Since when did a spiritual god realm cultivator have such combat strength that he could easily crush an emperor? No one had heard of such a thing since ancient times. Everyone just widened their eyes and stared blankly at this scene. They were completely speechless. Are you very strong? Lu Ming stared at Chu Luo and said indifferently. Chu Luo's body trembled when he heard those words. These 3 short words made him feel so ashamed that he couldn't show his face. Just now, he thought that he was an emperor and looked down on Lu Ming. When Lu Ming said that he wanted to rescue the World Academy alone, he said that Lu Ming was arrogant and ignorant. But now it was proven that he was both arrogant and ignorant. Chu Luo's body trembled slightly. After a short while, Chu Luo took a deep breath, lowered his head, and bowed deeply to Lu Ming. He said, "Commander Lu's talent is unprecedented and has surpassed the great figures of ancient times. I was ignorant and had eyes but failed to see. Please forgive me, Commander Lu." Chu Luo's voice was sincere and came from the bottom of his heart. He was finally convinced, completely convinced. Such a genius had never been heard of since ancient times, at least not in the divine wilderness continent. It had exceeded his imagination, and he was finally convinced. Commander Lu's talent is unprecedented and dazzling. The other experts in the surroundings were deeply moved, and they bowed to Lu Ming as well. Commander Lu's talent is unprecedented and dazzling. Commander Lu's talent is unprecedented and dazzling. After that, even more people bowed to Lu Ming, and their voices grew louder and louder. In the end, it resounded throughout the entire 100-beast tribe. Through this battle, many people were truly convinced by Lu Ming and recognized that Lu Ming had formed an alliance with Xiao Wan and was the supreme commander. Previously, many people had called Lu Ming Commander Lu because of Xiao Wan. In fact, they looked down on Lu Ming in their hearts. However, after this battle, everyone truly placed Lu Ming in the same position as Xiao Wan, or even higher. He had such combat strength before breaking through to the Martial Emperor realm. If Lu Ming broke through to the Martial Emperor realm, how strong would his combat strength be? It was unimaginable. Lu Ming stood in the void, accepting the worship of the experts. His face was calm, like an invincible god of war. Go back and heal your injuries. Lu Ming waved his hand and put away the lightning whip. Chu Luo flew far away. Thank you for showing mercy, Commander Lu. Chu Luo bowed. Lu Ming, I haven't seen you in a while, and I have a whole new level of respect for you. Xiao Wan stepped forward and laughed. He then asked, Lu Ming, did the experts from the Divine Sect hide anything when they came to the Divine Wilderness continent? That's right. Lu Ming nodded. Now that he had established his prestige, there was no need for him to hide anything. This time, the Divine Sect is not the only sect that came to the Divine Ruins continent to recruit disciples. There are 3 other sects. Lu Ming said. There are 3 other sects from Yuanlu? Many people's hearts trembled. In their hearts, the Yuanlu sects were lofty and unreachable existences. This time, there were a total of 4 sections. Xiao Wan seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes lit up. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.